Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here with us today. I'm Wayne Tuxton. I have the pleasure of being the host and the moderator for the session. Oh, cool. Felt like Shaft there for a minute with my own soundtrack, you know? Our program tonight is on screening to treatment. Healing starts with my advocacy. This is a two-part program. The first part is going to be tonight, and then we're going to pick up again, continuing on our discussion tomorrow morning. And I hope we get to see everyone who's here now at both the sessions. This program is hosted by the Mount Airy Church of God in Christ Church and also the Mount Airy Kingdom of Health Ministry, who will be hearing a representative from that in just a moment. This also, importantly, though, is a big collaborative effort through the HEAL Collaborative and Merck Pharmaceutical Company. And we have a representative from Merck Pharmaceutical, Ms. Patricia Bustin. Please, she's a senior specialist, medical affairs with patient innovation and engagement, patient advocacy. Could you please stand up and let us give us a clap for you? Stand up. Too late. All right. Well, she's not going to do it. She probably can't do it. God knows only what. If a man can knock down the east wing of the White House without asking anybody, you think that she could stand up, right? All right. As long as we're all in agreement. But I want you all to think about it. How many of you can name me a pharmaceutical company? Anybody? Call out a name. Any name. Pharmaceutical company. Pfizer, okay. One. Merck Shop. How many of you have ever met a representative or even seen a representative from said pharmaceutical company? Exactly. So here we got one person. All right. So here we have somebody from a major pharmaceutical company is helping bring a program into your home so that we can get information to make us and keep us healthy so we can have the best quality of lives that we can possibly have. And I think that's an outstanding thing. So that's why I would like for her to stand up, but she ain't going to do it. But let's still appreciate you clapping for it. Say thank you very much. If you notice in your packets, which are chock full of all kinds of good information, one of the things that's in there is a pre-program survey and also a post-survey. Now, I won't be so presumptuous as to have you fill out the post-survey now, but please, if you would, make sure during the course of the program to fill out your pre-survey. These things help us in terms of developing programs in the future and let us know how well we're doing things. There is also a lung cancer questionnaire, a lung cancer screening questionnaire we'd like you to fill out, and there'll be more information about how to do that later on in the program. But please identify that and at least start doing some of the work on how that program is going to go. What's going to happen tonight? We're going to have welcoming, then we'll have a presentation from a most interesting young lady who will tell us about her journey with lung cancer. Then we're going to take a break for dinner, but I don't want you to forget anything that she was talking about. Then we're going to come back with several presentations. After each one of those presentations, somebody's French fries are ready? Just asking. Nah, don't worry about it. Happens to everybody. Probably going, in fact, now that you mention it, let me make sure mine is off. Yeah, no, don't worry about that. That happens. Not to worry. No, not to worry. Not to worry. We're glad you're here. We'll take you with that music. Not a problem. But anyway, after that, each presentation they'll speak, and then at the end of it, we'll have a question and answer session. But to welcome everybody and get things started off properly, I'd like to welcome Dr. Charlotte Marsh, who is the Mount Airy Kingdom Health Ministry. Now, she's the coordinator. Now, what many of you, in just talking to Dr. Marsh, she informed me of something that I was asking her what her PhD is in. She told me nurse midwifery, which is a fascinating thing. Don't correct me. She's going to correct me. So, but anyway, to welcome us here, Dr. Morris. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We welcome you here to the Mount Airy Church of God in Christ and our health ministry. We are so excited to have this program and so excited that you're all here. So I welcome you once, I welcome you twice, I welcome you into our house of faith. May you sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thank you. Oh, and I want to say Bishop J. Lewis Felton is our pastor. And some of you may know there was a funeral today. So there's a busload that is on their way back. They are still traveling. So he will be here later this evening. All right, I'm just going to, let's just look to the Lord. Father God, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we thank you always for the opportunity to serve, to do things, to educate and inform your people. And we thank you for we know that when two or more are gathered together, you are here with us and you are blessing this event. Lord, we just ask that you bless the hearer, that they may hear, learn, and take away from this experience ways to live better. We ask your blessings in Jesus' name.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Morris. Next, I'd like to bring up, as I said before, this is a collaborative effort with Mount Airy, Merck, and the HEAL Collaborative. And tell us a little bit more about what it is with the HEAL Collaborative. We have Ms. Shanika Bond. She is the Regional Director, Community Outreach and Advocacy Engagement with HEAL Collaborative. Ms. Bond.
Good evening, everyone. It is truly an honor to be here with you all today at Mount Airy Church of God in Christ, a place rooted in faith, family, and community. My name is Shanika Bond, and I represent HEAL Collaborative, Health, Education, Advocacy, and Learning. Our mission is to advance health equity through education, empowerment, and collective action, especially in communities that have been historically underserved and overlooked. We are gathered this evening to not only learn, but to lift each other up through awareness, action, advocating for ourselves and each other. So whether you're a healthcare provider, a caregiver, a survivor, or someone simply here to learn, your presence matters. Your voice matters. And together, we are moving toward a future where everyone has the knowledge, the tools, and the support they need to live a healthy life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bond. And again, this is a program that is for all of us here. This is not people standing up here talking to you. This is more of a dialogue. But we want to present a little bit of information so that we have a better frame of reference for that dialogue to take place. And I think one of the most important things that we do is we have a presentation. We get to hear from patients, because it's one thing to hear from healthcare professionals who we vicariously go along this journey with our patients, but it's a whole different ballgame when the patients have a chance to speak and speak their truth. And it's really important when we have someone like Ms. Jaymie Knox, who's a lung cancer survivor and a patient advocate, who's the one delivering this message. Ms. Knox, and I'm not going to call you Jams, though I don't really understand that, but she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she's been undergoing this her treatment and survival now for 7 years. And we all applaud you for that. And throughout it all, she has been very, very active. She conducts podcasts. She actually owns a radio station, which is not going on right now, but she still does a lot of podcasts, and she advocates for lung cancer awareness and, again, pushing lung cancer survivors. She is a fitness enthusiast, and she was telling me about how she likes pool. And when I thought about the fitness enthusiast, I naturally assumed she was swimming in a pool. No, she's a pool shark. So as one of those billiard type pool players, but that's okay. This is a no judgment zone, I promise you. But the great thing about her, though, she has the support of many friends and family. And with her today is her father, Mr. Steve Bold Sr. Mr. Bold, why don't you stand up for having such a great daughter? Thank you. So we know that Ms. Knox is going to be on her P's and Q's since her father is here to check on her and make sure she does the right thing. I give you Ms. Jaymie Knowles to tell us what it's really like with the patient journey.
All right, Dr. Tuxon, you're in the house of the Lord lying because you know I'm not going to behave myself. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. Again, my name is Jaymie Knox, and I am a stage 4 lung cancer survivor. I have been dealing with, battling, and fighting with this cancer for 7 years. Very excited to be hitting 7 years because I made the unfortunate mistake of asking my doctor what the life expectancy was of somebody diagnosed with ALK-positive lung cancer. And he told me with a straight face and no emotion at all that it's usually 4 to 6 years. And this was at age 32. So he just told a 32-year-old that she wasn't going to live to see 40. So that being said, I have made it my personal journey to make sure that I see 40, which I will next year, and I will moonwalk over that threshold with bells on my heels. And all of my friends and family around me. So I'm here to share my story tonight because I, number one, am a passionate advocate for biomarker testing. I originally got diagnosed from what was a cough and a shortness of breath that at the time I, originally thought might have been asthma allergies, but also had contributed it to my kickboxing, which I had started doing around the same time. And so I really wrote off the symptoms that were all piling together to diagnose for lung cancer, thinking that it was just, my body reacting to high intensity cardio. Fast forward, that started in April of 2018 when I started having the shortness of breath, back pain, and the coughing and all that. Fast forward to December of that year when I finally got my second opinion because I realized that something was truly wrong. That is when I got the diagnosis. What was the breaking point for me in getting the diagnosis was I was in the gym at the time and, I had just gotten into a comfortable relationship and just hit that 30-year-old, metabolism threshold, started gaining a little bit of weight. And so I was in the gym with my boyfriend at the time. He's now my husband. I was on the treadmill. I got to a quarter mile on that treadmill and I realized that I wasn't breathing. And it wasn't like one of those things where if you're somebody who runs, like at a certain point you hit your endorphins and that runner's high kicks in, you feel really good. It was like, no, you're not bringing in any oxygen. And I had to stop. And he looked at me and he was like, you need to go get a second opinion. And that was in October. So because I was a new patient, my second opinion didn't come until December. So I went into that doctor's office thinking maybe I had pneumonia or, some kind of cold that had just, I let spiral a little bit too long. And I walked out of there, not realizing. And actually, you know what? I have to shout out my best friend who's sitting in the room because she's the one that kind of really pushed me to go to the doctor. I remember I went in to get my second opinion and they came back because they sent me up to get an x-ray. I came back down and he was like, are you feeling okay? And you never want to hear a doctor say that to you. So he said that to me and all the blood had drained from his face. I remember seeing that and I just was like, I'm tired, but I feel okay. And he was like, well, your x-ray came back and your entire left lung is either covered in fluid or a mass and we don't know what it is. And so he's like, we need to admit you to the hospital right now. And I was like, okay, all right. This was just a quick appointment. I am not ready to go into the hospital immediately. Had a whole lot of stuff going on in my life, which I know you're looking at me like, girl, what are you talking about? But my husband was deploying that weekend. I had a radio station event that weekend. And if you know anything about event planning, something like this where like you can't just cancel it. And so it was just a whole lot of bad timing. And so I was like, all right, whatever this is, it was a Wednesday, like whatever this is, I needed to wait till Sunday. And so on Sunday, my best friend texted me, she's like, so you're gonna go to the hospital, right? I'm gonna come up there and we're gonna go to the hospital tomorrow, right? And I was like, all right. So because of Sade, I actually went to the hospital the next day. And she was there with me when I got my chest tube procedure. I was awake for. And she held my hand while I went through all that. And they took 2.5 liters of fluid out of my chest, which is apparently what I had been carrying around for several months and was the reason for my shortness of breath. And so I say all that to say, I had symptoms and I should have been paying a little bit more attention. But I also was blessed that I had a healthcare facility team who did biomarker testing for me while I was in that hospital. And that was what made the life-changing difference for me. If I had gone through chemo or radiation, given that I had 2.5 liters of fluid in my chest, I wouldn't be here today speaking with all of you. So I have a biomarker mutation called ALK positive. And I am grateful that I have that. It's a very highly researched and highly treatable branch of lung cancer. And so I've been on a TKI for 6 years, actually. It's the only one I've been on so far. I've been grateful to have an amazing response on it. I thank science and research and God for that. But I have been on this medication for 6 years. It has pretty much given me my life back. If you had talked to me in December 2018, I was not feeling real strongly that I was going to be here 6-7 years later talking in front of all you folks, giving my story. But a couple months later, I was back in the gym kickboxing. I was running on the treadmill again, accomplishing all the goals and stuff that I had already set out for myself because I just refused to let cancer take anything else from me and take away any of the goals and things that I wanted to achieve. So I appreciate and I thank the HEAL Collaborative for allowing me to speak and tell my story. And I hope that my story in here will motivate others to get screened, to pay attention to your body, and to listen when your body's trying to tell you something. If that check engine light's been on for a while for you, go to the hospital and get checked. We can't bury our heads in the sand. The Black community is far too affected by so many diseases that are coming on in late stage because we just don't want to go to the doctor. But I'm standing up here as a 39-year-old with stage 4 lung cancer who never smoked, and I have no other risk factors, telling you that you've got to take your body seriously when it's telling you something's wrong. So I thank you guys for being here tonight. Tell a friend to tell a friend. We're going to be here tomorrow as well. I thank the HEAL Collaborative team for having me here, and Merck and the Church of God in Christ that is sponsoring us tonight. And I just appreciate everyone listening.
Thank you very much. We'll be hearing more from Ms. Knox during the question and answer period. She's going to tell us a couple of things about the value of having family and friends help us. She's also going to tell us what TK means. Please continue. If you want to get seconds, feel free to go ahead up there and get some more. Those of you who have not had a chance to get in line, please go ahead, get in line and get something. Food is good. We want you. By the way, give a hand to the folks who prepared and made everything good for us. Thank you very much, ladies. We're going to continue on with our program with our first speaker, and that is Dr. Eric Flanaud. Dr. Flanaud earned his medical degree at the University of Texas Health in Houston at the McGovern Medical School. He then completed a residency in internal medicine at the University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston, followed by a fellowship in pulmonary and critical medicine at the University of Texas Health Science Center, also in Houston, and at the MD Anderson Cancer Center. Dr. Flanaud is an associate professor in the Department of Medicine at Morehouse School of Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia. He is the chief and director of pulmonary and critical care and interventional pulmonary medicine at the Grady Hospital in Atlanta. And he's also the director of the Georgia Cancer Center Advanced Diagnostic and Interventional Pulmonary Service and the director of the Lung Nodule Clinic at Grady Hospital. Today, Dr. Flanaud is going to speak to us about lung cancer, prevalence, disparities, screening, and treatment options. I give you Dr. Eric Flanaud.
Well, thank you. And thank you for coming out tonight. I know it's, it's tough to come back and whatever else. And don't worry about, you guys just go and keep eating, because I learned a long time ago, don't get in the way of anybody's eating. So that's very important. But I have a hard task right here. What I have to do is talk to you a little bit about exactly what lung cancer is, how it affects African Americans more than it affects other cultures, and then a little bit about screening, a little bit about treatment, but the important aspects of things that we should keep in mind as it affects our population. So I've got to do all this in a few minutes, and they told me to keep on time, so I'm just going to keep going, okay? But first thing is, and this is what I found that a lot of people really aren't sure all the time, is what exactly is lung cancer, okay? So I want to give you a general idea. Any cancer, it starts like what you have is just a normal cell, and for some reason, there's a genetic change. Something happens, whether it's exposure to a chemical or a genetic change that runs in the family that causes that one normal cell, it gets this genetic change, and it becomes a cancer cell. And what happens is it just doubles, right? It just starts growing and growing out of control. So you got one cell that goes to 2 cells. You got 2 cells that go to 4 cells, 4 cells that go to 8 cells. And eventually, you get this malignant cancer that starts taking over different parts of the body. That one cell could be a colon cell. It could be a breast cell. It could be prostate. For the sake of this discussion, it's a lung cell. So that's all cancer is. It's just the cells just grow out of control and they take over parts of the body. When we talk about lung cancer, I want you to understand that there's 2 main types of lung cancer for this, and you'll hear about it. And keep in mind that in the medical profession, we're not really good about naming things. So I'm going to kind of give you an idea about the 2 different types. There is one type that we call small cell. And if you look at this, this is under the microscope. Each one of these little purple dots, that's a cancer cell. They're really small. These grow really fast and they spread really fast. There's an extremely high link to smoking. And because they're so fast, it's hard to stage them like normally. So you either have it where it's in one spot, or it's which is limited, or it's extensive and it's all over the body. Now the other one These cells are larger. So each one of the purple dots, that is a cancer cell. So we just named it a non-small cell cancer, okay? The cells are larger, they grow much slower. There's more causes that are linked to it, environmental causes outside of just smoking, exposures, and even genetics. And the stages, it's either local, it's in one spot, it's regional, where it might be in one spot of the lungs or lymph nodes, or it could be distant where it's spread all over the body. So those are the two types. They behave differently, but we have to keep in mind that they really do impact us differently. If we think about causes of lung cancer, we all know number one is going to be smoking, right? There's a strong link to it. About 95% of the cases of lung cancer, either type, small cell or lung or non-small cell, are linked to smoking. But number two in the United States is radon, okay? And number one cause of lung cancer in patients who have never smoked is radon, okay? So how many have heard of radon before? Okay, so yeah, and I think you probably should have heard of it here in this area. So what radon is, for those that don't know, radon is a radioactive material. It's a breakdown product of uranium. You can either, if you've ever worked in a uranium mine, you might be exposed to it. The other thing is that it may come from, like if there's granite in the soil, there's been factories in the soil, it comes up through and it gets into houses too. And the EPA actually has tests for it. And here in Pennsylvania, of all the houses that are tested, 39% of them exceed the safety levels of radon in their house in this state. That's almost 40% of the houses that you could just randomly test are above the high safety level there. So it's the number two cause of that. There's other things, there's asbestos, there's pollution, chemical factories, especially in the southern steel factories in the factory towns. And then just having lungs. You heard a very powerful story earlier that not a smoker, a very healthy person develops lung cancer because there's other causes that we're still starting to figure out here. And we're actually starting to see more lung cancer develop in African Americans. And it's really a problem. It's so much higher in African Americans and the survivals are worse that we really need to start paying attention to it. And I want to explain to you exactly why it's bad. So if we think about the new cases of lung cancer, and this is for your state specifically in Pennsylvania, here's the national average. You guys have a high rate of lung cancer. I have a suspicion that it is smoking, because I'll show you your smoking rates a little bit. And I have another suspicion that it might be related to radon. And the other thing about those other risk factors is if you have one, yeah, it has a certain percentage that it gives you a risk factor. But if you have multiple, it's not like you add those risk factors together, you multiply them together. So for example, if I smoke and I have exposure to asbestos, which is 6%, 6% increase and 10%, it goes up to 60% chance of developing cancer. So these are factors that we need to know about and what we're exposed to, especially here in Pennsylvania. Right. And when I start thinking about lung cancer and these healthcare disparities, these things that differentiate the inequity, or these inequities that differentiate us from other patient populations, a lot of times when we start talking about disparities, first thing we think about is race, right? It's racism. Right? But it's not always that. There's a little bit of it. We can't push that out the door, but we have to think about it in different terms if we're going to get a hold of it. And I want to give this to you because I think it's important to have some degree of education about health and literacy, because we won't get rid of these disparities, these health inequities, if we don't have health literacy to help. So if you think about it in terms of health and health care, and when we talk about health, we talk about, one, our biology, because you ask anybody, they'll tell you, we're different than other people. And it's a reality, and I'll show you proof of that. And then the environmental exposures and all those things that impact your health. And then there's health care, right? And whether or not there's opportunities to have it detected early, if there's opportunities to get staged, if there's opportunities to get the treatments that are available to other populations. And all of these intersect, and these develop either the balance or the imbalance of healthcare in the United States. So specifically for Blacks, well, Blacks have the highest death rates despite smoking equally to other races. Okay, I want you guys to think about this, right? You can smoke the same as someone that's white or Latino, but you're gonna have a higher rate of lung cancer, okay? So that tells you something about that. Blacks are less likely to get screened, less likely, and if you don't get screened, you're less likely to get diagnosed early, and then you're gonna be less likely to qualify for treatments. So here's just an example of how bad this is. So these are statistics specifically for African Americans. And what we're looking at on the top level are the estimated new cases of all types of cancers that we expect to see this year. Prostate, lung, colon, kidney, and you're looking at for men and women. So number one that we expect to see about 41,000 new cases of prostate cancer diagnosed this year, right? And for women, it's gonna be breast. But if you look at that, so it's number two. And if you make the comparison between prostate being 41,000 and lung cancer being about 13,000, so it's about 3 times as much, right? You're gonna have 3 times as much prostate. But if you look here to see the estimated deaths, these are the number of deaths we expect to see this year from each cancer. Lung cancer goes to the top. If I were a betting person, I would have said, well, there's 3 times as much prostate cancer. I expect more people to die of prostate cancer. That's not the fact. So something thinks that lung cancer is more aggressive in African-American men than even the most common ones. And look at breast cancer. It's gonna be the same for women, right? Breast cancer is number one. Again, 3 times as much, right? But if you look at it, now breast cancer still stays number one, but you're talking 6,800 versus 6,200. It's about the same. So still more aggressive in African Americans than the number one cause of the cancer, which is about 3 times as much. So this is telling you something about the behavior of this cancer in our patient population, in our population. But think about what I said. I said a little bit earlier, right? You can smoke the same amount, but we're gonna have higher rates of lung cancer, right? So this is what we're talking about. The lung cancer incidence rates, and we get the rates, how many people per 100,000. So just look at the numbers specifically, it's balanced across. But on the top in the green section, I have African Americans versus whites and Native Americans and Alaskan Natives, right? So the rate here is about 74 versus 64 for whites. So 10 points higher, okay? Now, we come over here and let's look at the smoking prevalence. African Americans, men, in yellow on each group, whites and Native Americans, and then women in the more orange color. 25 versus 23, that's about the same, right? For African Americans and whites, men, 25, about the same. And then for women, 18 versus 20, about the same. Now, go back to this column, 10 points higher. So you smoke the same, but you have higher rates of lung cancer. And you really want to see the difference. You really want to prove that there's something different about different populations. Look at the Native Americans, right? Especially the men, right? They're smoking about twice as much, but they're about half as much on the lung cancer. So there is something different about the biology. And if we don't recognize that there's something different about our biology, and we don't make the adjustments in what we do and how we behave and the exposures that we do and how to get the treatment, then we're gonna continue to have these disparities, okay? Pennsylvania, y'all can smoke. We were walking through downtown and y'all can smoke, and you smoke a lot of different things too. Right. But because you're above the national rate. So there is risk factors that's just here in the state. Okay. Prevention. Slides are a little bit out of control, but let's talk about this. Smoking not only can you guys smoke, but it actually impacts younger populations too. This is a study that they did back in 2022. They took middle school students. Okay, I saw a few young ones here earlier, right? This is 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, right? They took middle school students and they looked to see how many are actually using some sort of tobacco product. Tobacco products, overall, about 5%. About 5% of kids in junior high school, right, of any product, and the girls were more than the boys, right? And you're starting to see, and these tobacco companies, they target them. We've seen that they target them with the electronic cigarettes in those little puffs. So they're candy flavored. They have the flavors that the parents can't pick up the smell as much, and that they feel that they're getting away, and it's something that's enjoyable to them, but not knowing that the nicotine amount there is what's keeping them, and you're getting those young brains addicted to the nicotine that gets ingrained. And what happens when they run out of money? Because those things are expensive, they go on to cigarettes. So these numbers continue to go up when they get into high school. Okay? Important part of this, and I'm gonna say this again, the kids, how can I say this? We can't teach our kids not to smoke if what? If they see us doing it, right? And so we have to think about that prevention point, okay? The other thing is, I've learned a long time, we've set up our lung nodule clinic about 9 years ago, and we've been really focusing on our screening efforts. And there's a lot of untold truths. What I've learned to ask patients is not, when did you start smoking? How much do you smoke? I had to start asking, what do you smoke? Right? I found that out downtown today. Okay, so. All right, so here's the thing about it, and we always talk about nicotine, right? Nicotine. Nicotine is the addictive agent inside of tobacco, right? That's what keeps you coming back for more. Nicotine is not a pretty drug, right? It's extremely addictive. The only other two things that are more addictive than nicotine, heroin and cocaine, right? But it is legal, right? If it were a new drug coming out today, the FDA would have a problem with it because it is that addictive. But because they know that it is that addictive, it's tightly controlled in cigarettes, right? So we know that every cigarette has about 8 milligrams of nicotine in it, okay? But when I ask, what do you smoke? And I had a young guy, he's 39 years old, he has stage 4 cancer, and he said, Doc, I don't smoke that much, I only smoke 4 a day. I said, 4 what? He said, 4 Black and Milds. I said, oh, the small cigars. He says, yeah. I said, you know how much that has? Yes, 100 milligrams in one of them. That's about 12.5 cigarettes, right? So if you're doing that, if you're doing 4 a day, you're a 2-pack a day smoker equivalent of nicotine. And those large cigars, because people like, oh, we go to the cigar bar and we get some of these and whatever. That's 200 milligrams, right? Yes, 25 cigarettes. That's a pack. It's just, it's cute. We're watching the football game. Yeah, it's not so cute, right? But the tobacco companies knew this, right? Not only do they target the kids, they target certain populations. And you know what? You think they're named Black and Milds by accident. No, they're targeting specific populations, right? And if you start looking at these new things, the electronic cigarettes, right? And you see the big old puff of smoke that comes out when they're using them, whatever else. So we know a pack of cigarettes about 20 cigarettes, right? If you take the jewel pods, that's about 41 equivalent of nicotine. You get this puff bar, and this is the one I really have a problem with because not only do you get a lot of nicotine with it, but it's menthol flavored. So they use the menthol to soothe it so it's not as irritating. So you say, okay, well, it smells, it tastes good, whatever else. I'm getting addicted to the nicotine, and it's not burning my throat, right? And that's what keeps coming back. And this one's just, this newest one is about 96. Do you see people go through 1 or 2 of these a day? Right. Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, these hookah bars. You guys, anybody been to them? Don't raise your hand. Got you. So the hookah bars, I'm not a fan of the hookah bars at all because of the the nicotine exposure that you're gonna get from those, right? So if you guys are not familiar, they come in and they put the little thing there and everybody's passing the little thing and everybody inhaling and they're puffing and stuff like that. And it's a group of 6. You pay for like an hour session from that standpoint. So the first problem I have with that is like if I go out with a group of friends and somebody has, a milkshake or something, they say, here, take a sip of this. I'm looking at that straw kind of crazy because I don't know where your mouth has been, right? But now they're passing this around. And not only that, but you got everybody's breath around here and this is in and out of their mouth and they spend a session for about an hour and each person gets about 200 puffs in that one session plus the secondhand smoke. And that's about the equivalent of 100 cigarettes in one session, right? And so you think this is a benign thing, but it's a very popular thing because the problem with that is not only are you having this one exposure with that much nicotine exposure occurring in the session, but it's socially acceptable, right? And it's the fun thing to do, and it's downplayed, not realizing that your brain is picking up on that nicotine and it's embedding them as an addiction. And as you grow up, your brain is still growing until you're about 25. Right? And then it's maturity. So this is embedded in there, and that's what makes it harder for people to quit. That's about 5 packs in one sitting. Got it. The targeted advertising, and I put this up because there's people of different ages in here, right? You can see this through all different things. Now, we all want to say that, we're the younger generation, but you recognize some of these. And it's interesting, we were in Detroit. We were in Detroit recently. It's a beautiful church, and they had all this collection of Jet magazines through there. And as you just went through and I flipped over one and whatever, there's always one of these on the back of them until about the late 80s, right? Because it was targeted. And in fact, it was so bad, it is so bad, the targeting for African Americans, for every one magazine, article, or advertisement that had non-African American person in it, there were 10 that had Black people in it. That's how much the targeting was there. And they knew exactly how to do so. And even now, when they're switching over to vaping, there's whole manuals. You can look this up on the internet. There's whole manuals and instructions on how to market and target people for vaping, right? So this is an industry, and they're good at it, right? They really make it, just relax, stop smoking, relax and get cancer. Right, the whole process. And this is from a European journal. But even in the European journal, bring African Americans. All right, where do I start here? Got you. So here's the thing, and it's, just going through on marijuana's legalized and it's acceptable. So for the longest time, we did not have a way of knowing whether or not smoking marijuana had any relationship to developing lung cancer. But now there's been studies that have shown, and what they have shown is if you are a heavy marijuana user in this study, that you have a 2-fold risk of developing lung cancer. Heavy. So anybody want to know what heavy is? Yeah. 50 times in a lifetime for this study. Wait, I didn't say a week, because y'all know some people. 50 times in a week might be on the low side. I'm not pointing anybody in here, but y'all know some people. 50 times in a lifetime puts you at a 2-fold risk of developing lung cancer. Partially because it's unfiltered, who knows what you're rolling in it, who knows how big you're rolling it, and I need to stop there. So with all of these exposures, we have to start looking at our healthcare system and say, how can we find this earlier, right? And how can we screen for this? How can there be early detection? And how important it is for us as people. So screening is extremely important because when we screen stuff, we're trying to find it early. We know that with lung cancer, and you heard the story of Ms. Knox earlier, right? By the time you start having the cough, the shortness of breath, the trouble breathing, you're coughing up blood, you're losing weight, you have pain in different places that you really shouldn't be having because you need to get checked out. Because when you have the symptoms, it's usually late stage. 75% of the time, if you have any of these, it's gonna be a later stage. So the importance of screening is our goal is we're trying to screen to find lung cancer early before there are symptoms. And just to give you a little anatomy class, okay? So when we look at trying to find an early lung cancer, this is a CAT scan, this grayish, sorry, go back. The grayish area, and here's the lungs, here's your heart, these are ribs around here, and this is the little lung cancer that was caught early. So if you ever see somebody that bruises their ribs, right, or gets a punctured lung, it hurts. It hurts because there's a whole ton of nerves that are around the edge of the lung, okay? Or If it happens to develop in the throat or one of the bronchi, there's a cough that comes up. But in the middle of the lung, where there's none of that, there's no nerves. So if you have this small little lung cancer developing there, it's growing unchecked, unrecognized. So that's why you have to screen and actually look for it if you have the risk factors for it. Because we know that if you screen and you detect the lung cancer by screening, you have a 25% less chance of dying of lung cancer. So the screening part's important. So who should be screened? There's criteria for this. And if you don't know this, I see some people taking your pictures. Take your pictures. This is important. Okay, so the criteria for screening, if you're between the ages of 50 and 80, right, that's going to be, and then we calculate this thing and we call it a pack year. It's really simple to calculate, but if you have at least a 20 pack year or more history. So what that is if I smoke 1 pack a day for 20 years, I have a 20 pack year. Okay, if I have 25, screen 20, 21, 22, all the way up, you qualify. If I smoke 2 packs a day for 10 years, and there are some people, right, then that would qualify you. And if you have smoked any time within the past 15 years, then that's somebody that you should either encourage to. Did I hear that's you, someone? I'm not calling anybody out. That's somebody that might want to be considered for screening. You might want to get screened, sir. Got you. If you smoke half a pack for 40 years, that's going to put you in the criteria. Now, I suspect that this criteria is going to change. The criteria has already changed once because what we found, and this is a study that we actually did, what we found is that the older criteria was not picking up enough African Americans there because we smoked less. Remember I said we smoked less, but still had high cancer rates. So they actually changed the criteria and they dropped the age. I suspect as we continue to go on with the screening, we're going to find out more about this, and I suspect it's going to change. I don't think one screening is going to fit all, but I can only tell you about what's approved right now because this is what's going to get sort of funded and reimbursed. You can get screened through most institutions, and I think you have some surveys on your chairs that we're going to have you. Yeah. Yes, you may ask a question.
About a young lady who shared her testimony, in her 30s, non-smoker. So what do you recommend for someone like that?
So we can go through a little bit of that in the question and answer. As we start going through screening, we're finding more cancers, lung cancers, in different patients, and then we start looking at other family members and other risk factors. As their houses have radon, what type of employments are they doing? We're starting to find out more about that. I have a strong suspicion that these criteria are going to expand to include other people who are at risk, have family members at risk, or in areas that have higher pollution, especially African Americans. You talk about those houses that have high radon rates, right? Who lives there? It's not the people that know that they have highlights. They have their mansions up on the hill. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I promise you we'll go. Yeah. I promise you we'll come back to that. Yeah, they told me I'm already going to run over and they know it. Yeah, let me keep going. Okay. So screening. Yeah, screening. Actually, Pennsylvania is doing a really good job in screening. Yeah, Pennsylvania is doing really good. Here's the national average. You guys are above the national average. This is about 15 or so. You're about 17. And this is screening for people that we know are high risk. I think that African Americans are being underrepresented in this. I think we need to get out to the doctors a little bit more and get screened by recognizing some of these risk factors. So why does screening really impact this, and does it make a difference? So what we're looking at here, and I know I got a lot of graphs about it, really try to just show you that what we really know about this. So what we're looking at here in this graph, we're looking at the stage of lung cancer at the time it was diagnosed, and we're comparing whites and blacks. And remember I talked about it being localized in one spot, regional if it's in one spot, and some lymph nodes, and then if it's spread distantly. So if we look at this and we look at whites, and we look at how many have just a simple early stage cancer, whites are more likely than African Americans. Okay? And then regional, it's about the same, and then African Americans are more likely to have it spread at the time that they're diagnosed. But we need to take action and checking these risk factors and knowing who needs to get screened. Specifically for Pennsylvania. Now this was interesting because this is one of the first states that I actually seen that if we look at blacks and whites and who has early diagnosis, the number is a little bit higher for blacks versus whites. So it's about equal likelihood of being diagnosed early, right? And statistically, whatever else, okay, those two numbers are the same. So we can say, okay, yeah, well, it's equal. You have an equal chance of having it found, diagnosed early if you live here in Pennsylvania, right? But you're still, early stage is the most curable one, right? Because you can get curative surgery, but you're still less likely to get the surgery. So equal, but you're less likely to get the surgery. Okay? And who's more likely to not have any treatment at all? We know the answer to that, right? So we have to take action and act on some of these. And one of the things that we tend to do is we tend to delay some things. Like if you get a diagnosis that doesn't sound good, I'm gonna get a second opinion, right? Or let me think about this. I'm not sure I'd like to see what to say. So when I talked about this one cell that goes to, this one cell that goes to 2 cells, the 2 cells that go to 4 cells, or this thing that's the size of a grape has now gone the size of 2 grapes, and then 4 grapes, and then a pear, and then a banana or whatever size things. This is the doubling time. We talk about how fast it takes to go from 2 to 4 or 4 to 8. That's the doubling time, okay? So for the non-small cell, that doubling time, that time to double is about 30 to 90 days, right? So when you think about, okay, I didn't like that diagnosis, I want to get another thing, another, second opinion. Okay, then you got to go get another CAT scan, then you got to get the appointment, then you got to get the follow-up from the appointment, then you got to get another biopsy, then you got to get another, so by that time is spread. So you've gone from something that was the size of a grape to now 2 grapes, right? And it's giving the opportunity to spread. And we know for non-small cell lung cancer, if you catch it at the early stage, the most effective treatment is surgery. You can get chemotherapy and other things, but get it out of the body. Now, we tend to duck away from surgery. We think, oh, if you cut on it, it's going to spread and whatever else. That's a myth, right? If you got the opportunity to get it out, get it out. That's the best opportunity for cure, okay? So you can get surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and now there's new precision medicines or target therapy. You heard it earlier. Biomarker testing is giving new opportunities to have better survival rates. Okay, we'll go back. Oh, yeah. Surgical. So we know that surgery is the best option, right? Surgery is the best option for getting early stage. When we take early stage lung cancer and you cut it out, then the survival rates are great. For white men, about 93%. For white women, about 93%. For black women, about 90%. Men, we got a problem here. Right, because we're not getting the surgery. Now, the reasons why, some of it is people don't want surgery, they don't want to be cut on, they don't want to have this, they don't want that, and the follow-up is very poor. But this is the area of target. If we know people that get diagnosis, you get them in and you get them diagnosed, staged, and treated sooner because the survival is actually better, okay? And we talked about this earlier here. We're less likely to get curative surgery, more likely to have nothing done at all. Okay. So the small cell one, that's that more aggressive one, right? The cells are really small and it's moving pretty quick, right? It's doubling time 1 month, 30 days. When I have a patient and I biopsy them and that biopsy comes back as small cell lung cancer, that time clock starts ticking right that minute because we don't have time to delay to come for this follow-up and now get this done and get this done because it's doubling and it's gonna spread fast. We need to get them moving through the system because it's the most aggressive that only about 5 to about 10% will still be alive in 5 years. And if you have the extensive stage, at the time you're diagnosed, where it's already spread. The median survival is about 6 to 12 months, even with therapy. And only 10% of people are still alive after 10 days, after 2 years of starting therapy. So this is very aggressive. We don't have time to delay, time to think about this. I'm not sure if I want to go through this. We got to make up our minds and move through the system pretty quick. Okay. New treatments. Most of the treatments, because you only have the 2-stage, it's either chemotherapy or radiation. Okay. There's some newer clinical trials out on immunotherapy, but this is the more aggressive thing. But these clinical trials, a lot of these clinical trials, and I talked about the initial screening criteria, it left a lot of us out. We weren't getting the same rates of diagnosis of early stage lung cancer as other populations. And part of that was because of history, and we understand it, there's distrust of some of these trials, that we're not participating in them. And so even though our population is represented higher, 15 to 20% of the nation's population is African Americans, in the initial study, only 4% were represented in the screening trial, which means the information that came out of that trial didn't represent us because we weren't a part of it. And so the criteria left us out, and part of it is some of us have left ourselves out. I think if we have the opportunity for clinical trials, there are some benefits for it. One, we know Tuskegee and the other things, and it's felt like you're being experimented on, that you're being withheld from treatment, whatever else. Yes, but that was stopped, it was recognized, and what happens now is it's so tightly regulated that if you're in a clinical trial for cancer, you're getting a medication that's already gone through the safety trials, right? And you're not gonna get a placebo. You're not getting a sugar pill while they watch something else going on. You're either gonna get the standard treatment or you're gonna get the new treatment, which has already gone through the safety trials. And what that does, it does a few things. One, you have opportunity of getting new treatment and the follow-up and all the scans done, and a lot of that gets covered. And it gives the medical profession an understanding of how a lot of these treatments work in African Americans, and it affects our population from not just the effect of the medications that are used, but also from some of the side effects that we feel, that we may experience, the weight loss, the other pains that come along with it, right? We get a better understanding of what works best in our population. And for those that are underinsured, you have opportunity for treatment, so you don't get left out, and that may extend your life. So the take-home points, right? Prevention. Again, we have to start early. It's great for people to stop smoking. I think that's great. It's great for people to get screened, especially if they know that their risk factors for having lung cancer are there, but it's also about keeping these people from starting. Recognize and know. If you know somebody that fits this part, I would encourage them to get screened, right? Because it can save a life. And then clinical trials. You have an opportunity for a clinical trial because only about 6% of African Americans are participating in any cancer-related trial, right? We're being underrepresented. And so the criteria, the treatments are being gauged for people that are not us. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Flo. I want to remind you, there will be ample opportunity at the end. And I'm coming over there, number one, for our question, doing the question and answer session. So if you have a question or you're thinking about something, in your little booklets, there's a little sheet where you can write down what your question may be. And please, please do write what your question may be. I'll be coming around, and we want to make sure we get those things. We talked about the lung cancer symposium that's going to take place in April of 2026 down in New Orleans. If you want to register for this, if you go in your booklet again, it'll have the healcollaborative.org. healcollaborative.org. You can go there and you can scroll down and you'll see where you can register for that program in New Orleans. It's going to be a bigger version of what we're doing right here. I want to make sure you put HEAL and not Health Collaborative, because there's another organization called Health Collaborative. So use HEAL Collaborative, and you want to put that on. We are recording this. This will be online later on. So if there's some things that you see that you want to see, go back and take a look at it. And we also have it running live right now. We have an audience out there that's listening, and we'll probably have some questions for them. So want to make sure we all understand that. So this will be available online. And again, you go to the healcollaborative.org and you'll be able to access that. Our next speaker is Ms. Ursula Mathis. Ms. Mathis earned her bachelor's degree in biology from Florida Memorial University and then her master's of business administration from the American Intercontinental University. Until this past June, Ms. Mathis was the director of the oncology service line at Phoebe Putnam Memorial Hospital in Albany, Georgia. She is now at the same location, the vice president of operations for the physicians practice group. Ms. Mathis will speak to us today about wellness-based decision-making approach. And if you remember from what Ms. Knox's conversation to us was about, how do you take control? Well, about taking control, Ms. Mathis is going to tell us how we go about that process of trying to take control. Come on down here, Mathis. I've been talking about you, waiting for you to get up here. We have to be kind to her because she hurt her leg, so we have to be nice to her today. Just today.
Good evening. First and foremost, thank you for the invite. Thank you for this house and this pastor of this congregation. Thank you for HEAL Collaborative. Thank you for our pharmaceutical sponsors. This is awesome. I was just telling Gabrielle, I was sitting in the back and just reflecting on when we started doing this almost, 2022, 3-4 years ago, and how far it has grown and how far it's come and how many lives we've been able to touch. And just the significance of what we're doing is amazing. And I'm so fortunate to have been chosen to be a part of it. I want to talk to you briefly tonight. My segment is very short because they know I get a little long-winded. But I'm going to speak with you briefly tonight about shared decision making. And when we talk about shared decision making, Dr. Fanal talked to us about the screening guidelines and how the participation of it and what the criteria is for it. So when the law was passed, one of the things that they required for us to do in order to get lung cancer screening on the docket was to have shared decision making. To be able to check that box to say that you sat down and had a conversation, was educated, informed about what the test was, what the doses of radiation was, and why you need to have this test done and why you qualify or didn't qualify. But as we talk about that, and that's a checkbox, they are supposed to be doing it, but isn't that the conversation we need to have for any and everything we do in healthcare? Isn't that kind of the conversation that when you see your physician, you want to be able to sit down and say, why I'm having these signs and symptoms? Why you want me to take this medication? What's the reason or the side effects of the medications or this treatment? What are my options to taking this medication, this treatment? But how many of us have those conversations? One, that was Jaymie. But right. And we don't have those conversations. For one, we perish because of lack of knowledge. Secondly, fear of outcomes and fear of next steps. What does that mean for me? What fear of, now what? So it's an avoidance thing on our behalf. And some of us are just not comfortable with speaking with our healthcare providers. Some of it's our own psychology that, like Dr. Fanal say, we say this racist, it's disparities, is all these other things going on in healthcare. All that is true. But who can advocate for you and your situation better than you? Who knows you better than you? Who knows the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? You. So you have to be comfortable with demanding these conversations. You got to do your own research. You got to go in asking questions. You got to be willing to listen. You got to know how you want to approach your providers. You want to build that relationship. If you got one that you can't talk to, you got the wrong provider, go find you one that you can. You got to know your medications. You can't come in and want to have an effective conversation and you don't have everything that you need to have the conversation. Can't come in, I take a white pill in the morning and I think I take you know how many pills white? You got blood pressure, but you don't take your blood pressure medicine because the things mess up some other things, but then you're going to be dead and ain't none of it working. So what are we doing? If we can't have these conversations and be real with ourselves first, to meet ourselves where we are. So we got to be able to have conversations. You go to the doctor. If you can't remember the pills, I can't pronounce the name of all the medicines. I worked in a cancer center for years. I can't pronounce cancer drugs. They change every day. I don't know what they're naming them after. But I tell my patients, write it down. Take a picture. Keep a ledger. They ask you what you're taking, give it to them. You know how many people we see that come to our health fairs, come into the cancer centers on 2 and 3 different of the same medications? Because they go to urgent care, they go to the ER. At the time, if their pressure's up, they put them on a blood pressure pill because they don't know what they're taking at home. So they say, take this, they go back home, they take that and that. You've got to know what's going on with you before you can put yourself in a position for somebody to help you and be able to go to step 2. Another reason why we got to advocate for ourselves and we've got to be honest about meeting ourselves where we are, knowing how we're going to navigate our journeys, being sensitive to cultural differences between you and your providers, to what your beliefs and what your preferences are, what your outcomes are, what you're willing to do and what you're willing not to do. We have to be open-minded about it. But when we're diagnosed or when we go to the doctor or when, whether it's cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, and everything, illnesses affects more than the patient. When you're diagnosed with anything, it affects your loved ones, your caregivers, your children, your livelihood, your job. It's a domino effect. So if you don't have your support system intact, that matters when it comes to your prognosis and your outcomes. If you can't have a real conversation with your physician, your loved ones, your prognosis matters, meaning your outcomes, your journey changes, the trajectory of your healing is based on these shared decision-making conversations, whether it's with you and your family, you and your provider, you and God, and being real with you and yourself. We need to know our family histories. Genetics matter. Genetic testing matter. We need to know our family histories and why it matters. And we need to not be afraid to ask questions. It's okay if you don't know. You know why they have specialty physicians? All physicians go to medical school, but all physicians don't know everything. We have a specialty physician because you specialize in that area. So I got to come ask you that question. I don't specialize in OB. Specialize in oncology. So no question is a bad question. If you want to know, ask. When you ask, you don't understand, say, I don't understand. Break it down a little bit more. Tell me more. Where can I get more information? Who else can I ask? Even when we're talking about our lung cancer journeys, and I'm going to talk about lung cancer a little bit because that's the forum that we have, but I talk about self-advocacy for everything. We advocate for everything in life except for our health. We advocate for our children. We advocate for jobs, positions, anything that involves money. We advocate for our churches, God. We advocate for just about everything but our health. So we smoke, we drink, we don't exercise, we eat what we want to eat, when we want to eat, how much of it we want to eat. When I say we, I'm talking about we because I do all those things we just mentioned. So I say we, it's real. But we also have to make informed decisions about, okay, if I do this, I know I need to do this. I can't do this and not take my medicine. I can't do this and not exercise. I can't do this and not drink water. I can't do this. And I can't drink alcohol all day, every day, and want to save my kidneys. I can't smoke continuously and think that smoking not only causes lung cancer, smoke is almost the #1 side effect or risk factor for almost every illness and disease. Smoking. So a part of informed decision making is that we have to learn how to control our habits and not let our habits control us. We have to learn how to control our habits and not let our habits control us. We're all flawed. We all have our vices. We all gonna do our thing, whether you do it behind closed doors, whether you do it publicly, whatever you do, when you do, how you do it, we all do. We like what we like. But it's how do you control what you like or what you do? How do you have open conversations with your providers about what you like and what you do? I promise you it's not new under the sun. I promise you there's nothing that you can go into your physician's office and tell them that they haven't already heard from somewhere. We get a little surprise here and there every now and then. But there's nothing. And they're human. So half the things they're talking about, they do it too. Just realistic. I mean, they're human. We're flawed. And people are flawed. You got to think of them as another person. You got to go in their office. While you sit down, you say, have a seat. Talk to me eye to eye. I'm feeling this. I'm short of breath. I used to can run a mile. Now I can't walk a block. I'm having some discomfort in my chest. I'm not sleeping well at night. I used to smoke, but I stopped about 15, 20 years ago. But I like a little cigar every now and then now. So now, I smoke a little cigar. What do you think is going on? If he can't sit down and talk to you, is there somebody else I can see? Can I get a referral? And no don't mean no. If you can't get it from there, go get somewhere else. We are most creative, and I always tell a resourceful ethnicity and group of people in the world. But we don't use those resources. We don't use that grit. We don't use that. We rather say, I was discriminated, because to me, that's what we're used to, and that's easy to just deal with and go home and say, we'll wait till somebody else calls or till something else happens. Then we end up in the ECs with late-stage diseases. No primary care physicians. Your primary care physician is the quarterback to your health. You have to have a primary care physician. If you don't have a primary care physician, go get one Monday without hesitation. Even if nothing is wrong with you today, if you don't have a primary care physician, go get one. That's the quarterback to your health. When you show up, your primary care physician should already know your blood type, what medications you're on, what you're allergic to, your side effects, everything. Whether you have a history of breast cancer, whether you got a family history, whether you have some type of heart disease and need a blah, 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 everything. When you show up in the cancer center and you don't have a primary care physician, I saw Dr. Fanas talking about how those cells just double when we wait and we wait and we wait double over time. We have no choice but to wait because we can't treat you till we can figure out all these other things that's going on. We got to get your blood pressure under control. Now we got to send you to the cardiologist. Make sure you don't have any type of heart disease before we can treat you with certain chemo drugs. Because if you've got heart disease, it's going to wipe you out. Now we got to make sure we can't do the CT of the abdomen and pelvis because your bond and creatinine is abnormal. All of that delays treatment. And I see it every day. I love my people, but the first thing they say, well, Miss Ursula, the other lady came in there, she said she had stage 2 too, and she started chemo yesterday. She had a doctor. Her medication was under control. She didn't have high blood pressure. We didn't have to deal with the comorbidities first. So you need a quarterback to your health. You need to be able to have honest conversations. We need informed decision. You need to navigate this journey and allow people to navigate it with you. No man should stand alone. Can't do it by ourselves. So you got to latch on to your support system. You got to latch on to your healthcare navigators. You got to find you a physician or a practice that you trust, that is able to have conversations with you and you with them. That's the key to breaking down the disparities, is that you got to break it down at home first. They exist. They're never going to go away. The easiest patient to treat is an informed patient. One that asks questions, because that means I got to be on my P's and Q's. I can't just write them a prescription and send them home. They're going to ask me, what is this for? Why are you giving me an antibiotic? I got an infection? But if you don't ask questions and we continue to take what's just given to us, whether it work or don't work, if we don't participate in clinical trials, medicine is never going to be created for us because there's a lack of participation on our part. So when it's precision medicine, we'll never have the outcomes for us that it have for other races and groups because they participate in the clinical trials and we don't. Now I agree, don't go participating in everything. I say that too. Anything that sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Just because they offer you some little trinkets and they're going to give you this flex card and do all of this and you drop your insurance and now you got the flex card. No. Have informed discussions and decisions with your provider before you make these choices. Life is about choices. Make good choices, especially when it comes to our health. Informed decision. Ask questions. Advocate for yourself like you advocate for everybody else. You got to put self first when it comes to your healthcare journey. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Ursula. I think, come on, give her another hand. That's just outstanding. I remember back in the Obama days when he was president, it was okay to be smart and be the president. Now we got this idiot sitting up there. He can't even, so you talk about being able to pronounce medications. This guy can't even say acetaminophen. He can't even say Tylenol, so come on. So you're right about that. Our next speaker is going to be Ms. Ashley Lee. And one of the things Ms. Lee is going to kind of get into, something that Ms. Mathis kind of touched upon a little bit, sometimes that fear and how that guides us in terms of making certain decisions about our lifestyles and what we do. Ms. Lee is a licensed clinical social worker, received her Master's of Social Work degree from Florida State University. She completed an internship at the Mayo Clinic and Department of Veteran Affairs. She is certified in advanced care planning and resources for enhancing all caregivers' health, a program known as REACH, and has experience in the field of social work, working as a trauma clinician, medical social worker with hospice, as well as hospital social work specializing in med-surg, emergency department, oncology, neurology, cardiology, and intensive care unit. Ms. Lee now works as mental health and behavioral health specialist at the VA in Jacksonville. This is the VA in Jacksonville, or is it just in Jacksonville? Just in Jacksonville, forget the VA. Ms. Lee will speak to us about mental health and suicide prevention. Thank you.
That's me. So the topic that I'm going to talk about can be heavy. So if you need to take some time for yourself or step out of the room, feel free. If you need to chat afterwards, please come and see me. So basically, this is the agenda. We're going to talk about mental health and suicide prevention. We're going to talk about access to lethal means, how to advocate for yourself, the importance of release of information, advance directives, and caregiver burnout and wellness tips. So I like to tell people to be hopeful, and I talk about being hopeful is about healing and operating in our purpose and our endeavors. All right. So our general mental health statistics, in case you're not aware, 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. 1 in 20 U.S. adults experience serious mental illness. And then 1 in 4 people with a serious mental illness have been arrested in their lifetime. 2 in 5 adults are in jail or prison have a history of mental illness. We've also got some statistics up there about the youth. So this is a long one about you guys, but I'm not going to touch on everything. But basically in Pennsylvania, there were 14 deaths by suicide per 100,000 people. In Philadelphia, there were 11 deaths by suicide per 100,000 people. So that's just in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, 19% of people reported frequent mental illness compared to 16% of the population in Pennsylvania. So in Philadelphia alone, you all are at a higher rate than people who are in Pennsylvania in general. 1,955 people lost their life to suicide in your state as well. 2,352,000 adults in Pennsylvania have a mental health condition. So that tells you that there's a lot of people who are struggling or have not been diagnosed, misdiagnosed, or have some issues related to their mental health. All right. 1 person dies by suicide every 10 minutes. So basically think about the time that we're in this room and how many people have lost their life to suicide. And we don't like to say committed because it sounds like, oh, this person committed to not wanting to be here. They committed to this mission to do this. They lost their life because they lost their battle with their mental health. And oftentimes they were struggling with other things as well. 1 person attempts suicide every 25.2 seconds. So again, think about the time that we're sitting in this room, we're talking, we're interacting, we're learning about things. There are people who are attempting to end their life. 1 male dies by suicide every 13.4 minutes, and 1 female dies by suicide every 51.5 minutes. Another fact is that women attempt suicide more often than men, but men usually lose their life to suicide more due to more lethal means, access to firearms, things of that nature. Suicide is the 11th leading cause of death, while homicide is the 16th cause of death. So basically what that means is we are losing our lives at our own hands more so than we're harming each other. So there were 1.6 million people who attempted suicide in 2022, 3.8 million people who had a plan to end their life in 2022. So again, these are high numbers, high rates of people who are contemplating not being here any longer. There were 3,967 African Americans who lost their life to suicide. The number was higher for the rate of males versus females. So again, even though women attempt suicide more frequently, men are losing their life more often to suicide. And then at the end, I think this kind of highlights even some of the stuff with like Dr. Flano was talking about with men and their rates. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death for Black men between the ages of 15 or 24. So if you know somebody in that age range and they're struggling and they're going through things and you may be seeing some challenges with them, maybe some erratic behavior, smoking, sexual health, different things that are changing with them, don't just think that that person necessarily is going through growing pains. It could mean that they're experiencing some mental health issues. All right. So signs of mental health needs: feeling sad, guilt, again, alcohol or drug use, sex drive changes, stresses, even if you're diagnosed with something, eating habit changes, overeating, undereating, issues with concentrating, issues with being able to maintain employment. These are all things that are signs of mental health needs. Concerns with seeking treatment. A lot of the stuff, as we already talked about: fear of judgment, lack of support, lack of mental health professionals in our areas, lack of having mental health professionals that can identify with us, fear of losing your job if you're seeking treatment, fear of losing access to firearms. That's a big thing. You know, if I go to the hospital, if I get checked in, if I seek treatment, you know, maybe I'm not feeling well right now, but if I report that, will I lose access to my firearms? Will my employer know? These are big concerns. The other thing that I would like to highlight is lack of insurance or coverage. If you don't have insurance, how can you seek help, right? If you don't have transportation, how can you go get help? These are all big concerns and issues that impact a person being able to get treatment even if they wanted to. How can we reduce the stigma around mental health? First, I would say we have to stop with the name calling. A lot of times we call people crazy, lunatics, crackheads. We're judging people. We walk by, and instead of saying, you know what, how can I help this person? You know, what are they going through? What are they struggling with? How can I assist them? Versus the name calling, all that stuff. Also, I would say to people, don't take mental health differently from your medical needs. If someone were to fall out right here, right now, you wouldn't know if they were having a stroke, heart attack, or whatever. You would try to get them assistance. You need to do the same thing for mental health, right? Don't make that person, oh, they know what they're doing, they know what's going on. They might not. They might have a black tunnel going through their head and they can't see the forest for the trees to how to help themselves. So don't treat that person differently. Mental health is health, and it's a part of healthcare. I also like to tell people, make sure you're validating your loved one's experiences and reducing your judgment. Oftentimes, we say you'll get over it, pray about it, you'll move on, you'll get better. That might not be the case for everybody. Sometimes we just need people to listen, be a listening ear. Sometimes they don't want a solution. They just need you to listen and talk them through it. Maybe I need your help. Maybe I need you to walk me through this. So keeping that in mind. And then also too, with mental health, and healthcare in general, always seek a second opinion. If you get with a therapist or provider, they're providing you with medications, they're talking to you. If you don't feel that the medications are working, go back and talk to the doctor, the prescriber, about what you're experiencing. If the therapist and you are not gelling, you can get another therapist. You can transfer care. This is all about you and your healthcare and you being an advocate and making a decision about what works for you and what does not work for you. And so always do that. You're not stuck with one provider. You can change if you desire. All right. So access to lethal means and safety for everyone. First of all, just be aware of signs that someone's in distress. If someone actually is having suicidal thoughts and has a plan in place to harm themselves, I would suggest sitting with them and then trying to see how you could get them taken to a hospital. But sit with them, validate their experience, encourage them, and assist them. The main thing I like to point out is just putting time and space in between the person who's having those thoughts and then having access to lethal means. So 988, if you are not aware of, is the crisis line number for anybody that's in crisis. Making sure you have that number in your phone or have it on your refrigerator in your house. A dog barking, somebody dropping off a package. If you get that inclination in your mind to send somebody a text, please do those things. Oftentimes we say somebody's been on our mind and we don't text, we don't follow up. So if somebody's on your mind, text them, call them, follow up. I'm just checking in to make sure that you're good. Is there anything that you need right now? How can I assist you? So that's the main thing that I would say. All right, so we're going to lean a little bit into the importance of advocacy and family support in your healthcare. Family support can lead to better outcomes. On your end, as a patient, the way that you can help yourself is completing a release of information. Release of information will help you with allowing your other providers to talk to your providers. It also allows the people in your family to be able to talk to your providers on your behalf. If you don't complete that, you're kind of hindering the process with people being able to assist you and having that complete quality of health care. Also, providers can still receive information from family members. So if you have a family member that doesn't want to complete a release of information, you can still call that person's provider and leave them a message to make note of what's going on. They're not going to call you back or get into that person's personal business, but you still can call and leave them a voicemail or a message or anything. Release of information can be rescinded at any time if you don't feel comfortable with that person being in your space or having access to your information. Prepare for your appointments, ask for clarification, participate in your health care. A non-decision with not making a decision about anything in your life is still a decision, right? So it's still going to have a consequence and an outcome. So you avoiding something, not making a decision about something, not participating in something, you're still making a decision in regards to your health care, right? Because you're still going to end up having that outcome. It's your choice what that outcome will be, but there will be an outcome. Wellness tips. Basically, what I like to tell people now is make sure when you get up in the morning, please do something for yourself. Oftentimes, you start your day being somebody's parent, somebody's spouse, going to your job, handling business. You don't take the time for yourself. So start your day off doing something for yourself first before you get into your role as worker, mom, dad, spouse, whatever, right? Because you're taking on that stress of the day and you're not even taking time for yourself, right? It is important for your outcomes, particularly for people that are diagnosed with cancer, to have some outlets. Read, breathe, journal, meditate, art, literally go touch grass if you need to. But get out there and prioritize your health, right? This is about doing these things before we get a diagnosis, doing these things during that time and afterwards. It's all about how you take care of your health. Your mental health is a part of your healthcare overall. And so, again, moving your body, taking that time for yourself, taking that time to give yourself space from the other things that are going on in your life, the financial stressors, the doctor's appointments, the family, the parenting, all those things, making sure you do something for yourself every single day, at least once a day. Start your day off with yourself, something for your self-care. You know, it really will improve your mental health, your outlook on life, even how you communicate and talk to yourself in the day when you get up in the morning. I am going to have a good day. I am going to get a solution to this issue. I am going to advocate for myself, speaking that into existence for yourself so that you can learn to change your mindset. And then lastly, how we can help each other. We need to be engaged with each other, be supportive, help your family members and friends, allow people to come in and assist you, discuss your healthcare needs and plans, have access to information. Again, that's a really, really big thing where we don't want to make a decision. We don't want to talk about things. We don't want people to have information. And those all can lead to negative outcomes for ourselves. It's not helping us. It's hindering us at the end of the day, because you can't do it all on your own. You know, we're a community and we need to help each other, but we need to tell the truth. We need to be accountable. We need to face what's going on with ourselves, and we need to start making decisions that benefit ourselves. And I personally like to tell people, get out of your feelings, right? Because your emotions will stop you from doing something that could benefit you in the long run. And so when you're in your feelings and you're making decisions based upon what you don't want to do, there's a lot of things you don't want to do during the day, but you do them anyway, right? Because I need that paycheck. So I go deal with that job with that person who's talking to me bad and doing this and this and this. Take the same time for yourself and your own health, right? I'm going to go deal with this doctor. I'm going to talk to this doctor. I'm going to figure out what the solution is. If I can't get an answer, I'm going to go seek that second opinion. So making sure you're taking the time to prioritize yourself and your health. And that's it. These are some resources if you want to screenshot for this area. And specifically for men, there is Black Men HEAL, where they offer virtual or in-person sessions, and they're usually for free, and they don't charge. So Black Men HEAL is a Philadelphia organization. So screenshot this if you're looking for information for mental health resources in the area.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee. Appreciate that. Our next speaker is going to be Dr. Patrice Hubert. We heard earlier that one of the factors that impacts when a person is intending to be treated for a particular illness, in this case talking about cancer, one of the limiting factors is the nutritional status of the patient. If they're in good nutritional condition, we can go on and give them a full course of therapy. If they're doing poorly, as we heard before, comorbid condition, we may be limited. Dr. Herbert earned her Bachelor of Science degree in dietetics, dietitian, her Master of Science in Nutrition Science, and her PhD in Health Promotion, all at the University of Connecticut. She is currently Principal Scientist at Medifast, Inc., where she applies her belief that, quote, health behavior change is both a science and an art, and it is her aim to champion data-driven approaches that honor culture, content, and complexity so that people can thrive and not just lose weight. I give you Dr. Herbert, who will talk to us about nutrition support.
Great. All right. So my name is Patrice Hubert. I'm excited to be here. I think I'm the last speaker. Hopefully, let's save the best for last. I'm going to talk about everyone's subject, nutrition and healthy eating. People usually don't like to talk to me, so hopefully you guys are okay with talking to me tonight. We're going to dive in a little. We're going to keep it real. I'm going to talk about how we can eat a little bit better for our everyday plates, our budgets, and our family. Oh, this is not me. All right, so I do like to start every presentation with a little bit about me so you kind of know who is in front of you. As I said before, I am a principal scientist and also a registered dietitian. I like to think of myself as a clinician scientist in the sense that I get the best of both worlds. So I've been a dietitian for about 13, 14 years. And I've been a scientist for about half that time. I come with experience both in the lab and outpatient and clinical world, and I'm able to kind of bring both worlds together to help treat my patients or my clients the best I can possibly treat them. My past research has focused on a couple different things, but what I've really always looked at is how taste, our culture, and our behaviors really shape the way we eat and how we can use that knowledge to prevent diseases such as cancer and also support healing. Currently, I do work in private sector, but I also do counsel on the free time. So I do like to continue to help people to change up their plates, adopt new healthy eating behaviors, and have like a healthier lifestyle. All right, so, okay, I don't know if you guys can hear me with this. I'm gonna move this over a little bit. All right, so we've learned a little bit about lung cancer today. We all know someone who's probably battled cancer, maybe a family member, a friend, or even ourselves. And we've learned about the disparities and how it really impacts those in our community, especially in the Philadelphia area. We've learned some of the top ways we can kind of help reduce that risk, whether it's through decreasing smoking, trying to stay clear of pollution, working the rail detection. But something we really haven't touched just yet is the power of food. Now, food itself is not going to suddenly prevent cancer from happening, but it can lead to helping decrease our risk, and it can also help to strengthen our body's defense systems. So it doesn't mean that food ever can replace treatment. Food is not medicine in that sense. It can help support our healing, it can give us energy, and it can help our bodies fight back. So we've always known food heals. I'm from the Caribbean, my family's from the island of St. Lucia, and we've had a lot of foods that I've grown up with that we've been told this is going to help cure illness, this is going to kind of help us feel better. Our ancestors used herbs, teas, and foods to prevent illnesses. And what we're finding now is that there was kind of some truth behind that. It wasn't all a bunch of like, I don't really know what's going on. What science is telling us that there's actually nutrients in those foods that actually do have healing powers. They do help us feel better. They can help us with our immunity. So things like collard greens, okra, sweet potatoes, beans, those all have nutrients that are rich in them that are key to helping us prevent or fight diseases. Even things like soul food, which gets a bad rep because it's known to be unhealthy. If we prepare it in the right way, prepare it with balance, we actually can still get those healing properties from the food. So let's dive into a little bit about how nutrition can support our lungs or our health in general. So every time we breathe, our lungs are exposed to oxygen. We're breathing right now. Oxygen is really what keeps us alive. But this causes something called oxidative stress. This is just the body's natural wear and tear over time, but too much oxidative stress that can be caused by pollution, smoking, or even everyday stress in lives can work on damaging lung tissue and other areas in our body. The good news is that we can have foods that are high in something called antioxidants. These actually help to protect our cells and reduce inflammation. So think of antioxidants in foods like berries, citrus foods, and nuts. These help our bodies repair and protect our cells. And so when we eat these foods regularly, we actually can strengthen our immune system and repair different tissues. This can help our lungs stay resilient, help other organs in our body stay resilient, and it helps us even as we age and we recover from different illnesses. All right, so now we know a little bit of how nutrition can support our lungs. What can we actually eat? So I mentioned that we have those antioxidant-rich foods that can help reduce the oxidative stress and inflammation. We can call these foods or like our cellular housekeeping. They kind of clean things up. They get rid of the bad stuff that might be in our body, and they help us kind of get rid of it. They assist our organs in the cleaning out of toxins from our body. In addition, we also have fiber, which also helps to remove toxins in our body. On the other hand, we have foods that are high in sugar or processed foods or fried foods. These foods are the opposite. They're not really our housekeeping foods. They're like that guest that comes in, stays at the place, and then just leaves. These foods don't do the best for us. These foods can actually work to fuel inflammation. Now, it's not that we can never, ever have these foods. The goal really isn't perfection. It's more protection. So having small swaps, so having a little bit less of our processed foods, our sugary drinks, our fried foods, and a little bit more of those antioxidant and fiber-rich foods can help our body take a little bit better care of ourselves. So one of the easiest ways we can do that is just through our plate and this concept of color. A lot of people think that nutrition or healthy eating is very complicated, and I tell them it's actually simple. The best thing you can do for yourself is to just try to have a lot of color on your plate. I try to aim to tell my patients to have at least 3 colors on your plate a day. Each color is going to give you a different nutrient. So we have a couple of examples. Green foods are going to be high in folates or chlorophyll. Orange foods will be high in beta-carotene, or what we know as vitamin A. Our red foods give us lycopene. Blue-purple gives us those anthocyanins. We really don't have to overthink it. I say people aim to have at least 3 colors a day. If you want to be the top of the line, every single meal have 3 different colors, but that can be a little bit hard for some people. But think about throughout your day, making sure you eat the rainbow in a sense. All right, so when we talk about protecting our lungs, we want to talk about giving the cells the nutrients they need to heal and defend. So these are a couple key nutrients that have been found to play some sort of role in lung protection. First, you have vitamin C, which is found in foods such as citrus foods, bell peppers, and broccoli. This is like your internal repair crew. This helps to repair any damaged lung tissue or shield any lung tissue from damage or daily wear and tear. And this isn't just for lung tissue, this is overall health as well. Then we have our vitamin E or selenium. So these work like shields in helping to protect our body for damage. So foods like nuts or seeds are really high in vitamin E, and foods like fish, eggs, beans are high in selenium, and those both help to boost that antioxidant defense. So you're able to fight off the oxidative stress, so all that pollution and stress and outside things that are coming and attacking your body. These foods give you nutrients to help your body fight that away. Then we have our vitamin A-rich foods, so our foods are orange, carrots, sweet potatoes. This helps to support, the mucus lining or the mucous membranes that line our lungs and other organs. And then lastly, you have your omega-3 fats, so your things like salmon, sardines, flax. These foods work to reduce inflammation. And as you can see, a lot of these nutrients you can get in your daily diet. A lot of the times what we see in the wellness world is, people are always trying to share taking different vitamins, the supplements, and saying you have to take A, B, C, and D to make sure you're getting all your nutrients. We can get them from food first. Now, if we run a bunch of tests and there's something going on and you're not able to absorb these vitamins from your food, then supplements might be the second option. But I always try to preach to people, start with food before you go into supplements, because a lot of the time you're just peeing out the supplements anyway, and you're not really getting it. So definitely trying to get these different types of foods first are going to be key. All right, so what foods do we want to be more aware or cautious of? So I kind of leaned into it a little bit earlier. Some foods are going to cause inflammation or not. Okay, it's done. All right, well, some foods are going to cause some inflammation or stress the lungs. There we go. Especially when eaten more often. So those processed meats, things like hot dogs, sausages, bacon, those all are found to increase inflammation in your body. And they can also increase that oxidative stress process to go a little bit quicker than you want it to do, and your body can't really fight it off as easily. Sugary drinks, we know raise blood sugar. They can also cause fatigue, so they make you a lot more tired. Fried foods add unhealthy fats that can stress the lungs, also makes you move a little bit more sluggish. You're not really able to move about your day as well. Alcohol can interfere with nutrient absorption. So let's say you do have a healthy diet, but you're drinking a lot of alcohol, that might stop the body from really being able to absorb all of those different nutrients. So you're not really getting what you need from your foods. Not your foods. But so the goal isn't to eliminate everything, but it's to make you more aware of how some foods work in our bodies, how some foods can harm our bodies, and what we can do to sort of decrease that and add in some things that are going to be better for our bodies. So I have some examples or some case studies of some patients and some ways as a dietitian I would work with them. So here we have Angela. Angela is a 58-year-old woman. She's recovering from lung cancer treatments. And she was just drained. She was tired. She was experiencing a lot of fatigue. She had poor appetite. She was losing muscle, but she really wanted to work on regaining her strength and her energy following her chemotherapy. She just wanted to feel strong again, but she lacked consistency. Her main lacking was with having regular meals and hydration. So our goal was to rebuild. So we started small, just making sure she was getting something to eat, getting something nourishing every couple of hours. And to accomplish this, you want to focus on having small, balanced, and easy to digest meals. Smoothies, things like smoothies, soups, are easy wins because they're really quick and easy to make. You can pack a lot of nutrition in them, or even things like eggs and having some vegetables to get that green color in it is going to be good in order to get protein, but keeping it small is going to be key. Also ensuring that you're prioritizing hydration and your protein intake. So making sure somebody's having enough water, they're drinking water throughout the day, they're not having a lot of the other, not having too many sugary drinks. So drinks are high in caffeine, as well as making sure you're getting protein in other ways. By the end of the 6 weeks, she reported that she had improved energy and a better appetite, and she was able to kind of keep on going on with her days. Next, we have Robert. Robert's a 52-year-old man, and he really wanted to eat better, but he was the one who tells me all the time, eating healthy is expensive. Healthy food costs too much money. I don't want to spend that much money, but I do want to eat better. He found himself skipping meals a lot and relying on fast food, trying to get those easy to fix meals or not having anything prepared at home. So you're stopping at the corner store, you're stopping at McDonald's, and you're just grabbing the food. But what he found was that his blood pressure was creeping up and his energy was low. But he was very motivated to actually improve those things. So for him, we take it from a different angle and we think about how can you make eating healthy work on a budget. To do so, you want to focus on making small, practical changes and just purchasing small or simple, affordable staples. So maybe swapping out more expensive things like red meat and trying to get canned fishes or beans. This concept of choosing frozen veggies and store brands. A lot of people think when they have to eat healthy, they have to get, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and store brands. There is no nutritional difference between a fresh vegetable and a frozen veggie. If we really want to get to the nitty-gritty of it, frozen veggies technically are going to be higher nutritional value than our fresh because they are picked at the right pickness and they're frozen right away. Versus vegetables are usually, picked somewhere else. And then they travel to get to the grocery store. And over that time and during that travel period, they do actually lose some of the nutritional value. It's not that much to be of any concern, but as I say, don't be scared to have frozen vegetables. I'm a big fan of frozen veggies. I buy them all the time. They're also quick and easy to make because I don't want to sit there and make veggies, take them out the freezer, pop them in the microwave. It's here and done. So having that is a great way to keep your vegetables cheap and always having available, as well as store brands. I like Aldi. I'm going to go to Aldi before I go to any other big generic store. It's the same food. So stick to those. Those are still healthy, even though they're cheaper. And then this concept of meal prepping. I know it's a big thing now in the social media world, this whole concept of planning out your food for the week and cooking everything for the week. And a lot of people make it look extremely complicated. It is not complicated. It does not have to be complicated. I'm going to talk about it a little bit in a couple more slides, but actually starting Sunday meal prep with this patient actually helped him to stay on task. So he wasn't like eating out as often. He wasn't skipping meals as often. It actually can help to save money because you are actually planning out your meals and you're not just buying like on a whim. Then we have our last case study, which is the Johnson family. So this was a family of 4. They have busy parents, 2 school-age kids. The parents are working long hours and they just want to keep up. So they're relying heavily on takeout and really having those quick meals. But as parents, we all want to make sure we're setting a better example for our kids. They want to try to eat together more, but they struggled with this concept of meal planning and grocery budgeting and making it work for their family. So the plan was to work on focusing on family style and simple meals. So things that don't feel like a burden, nothing too complicated. So looking up different like sheet pan meals, like what's something I can make where I can only use 1 or 2 baking pans. One of my favorite things I do for that is I put some sweet potato, some broccoli in the oven, and we make like mini burgers, pop them in the oven within 30 minutes or whatever, how long it takes, it's done. You have a complete meal. Or doing tacos. You can ask my daughter, I am a big fan of having tacos. We have them all the time. Quick and easy, you get the taco shells, you cook up your meat, you slice up whatever veggies. If you want to have veggies in it, it's easy to go and stir fries. You're still getting a lot of nutrition. You're still getting a lot of color because you're getting veggies in there. You don't have to have a whole separate serving of it, but it's easy and quick to make and also budget friendly. With them, we worked on creating a weekly grocery list and cooking schedule. So it's a great way to kind of get the kids involved, but also help parents stay on task and knowing, okay, what do I need to buy for the week? When am I going to cook it? What time am I going to cook this meal? How long is it going to take? That kind of thing. And really makes the kids feel like, hey, I'm actually needed in the kitchen. So you involve the kids in cooking and helping to set the table. And this helped them to have a goal of trying to have at least family dinners at least 4 nights a week. And that would lead to improved diet and also connection between them as well. So back to this concept of meal planning. So like I said, meal planning or meal prepping, I should say, for this slide, doesn't have to mean hours in the kitchen or doing these fancy, crazy recipes. I know it looks great on social media. People are doing the most. You don't have to do that. I say keep it simple. You follow the 3-3-3 rule. So think about your weekly basis. Pick 3 proteins for the week, 3 veggies for the week, and 3 whole grains for the week. So an example is you can have chicken, salmon, and eggs. Maybe you have it with broccoli, a salad, and carrot sticks or something, whole grains. Maybe do a brown rice, a sweet potato, a beans. Cook that for the week and then mix and match. You can say, okay, one day I'm going to have the chicken with my broccoli, and then maybe that's all I'm going to have. For breakfast, I'm going to have the eggs. That's all I'm going to have. For dinner, you might want to have the eggs. Maybe I'm going to switch. I'm going to have the salmon instead for this meal. You can mix and match it. If you want to have the same thing for every single meal, by my pleasure, go ahead and do that. But I find a lot of people might get a little bit bored from it. But if you have 3 different things from 3 different categories, it's a lot easier to mix and match and make different meals. You could even do the same 3 protein and just cook it like different ways. So maybe you make your chicken one way, you barbecue your chicken, and then you maybe put some teriyaki sauce on your chicken, and then you grill your chicken. That's a different way to kind of have it. But keep it simple. You don't have to do these fancy recipes. And if you want to do these fancy recipes, don't do them all at one time. I do have clients, they go on, they find things. And one thing I say, okay, figure out what your staples are. So have a staple breakfast meals, a staple lunch/dinner meals. And every month or so, add a new recipe, master that recipe and add that one into rotation. It helps decrease this overwhelming feeling that we get from cooking that tends to make people frustrated and not want to do it anymore. It's the concept of cook once, eat twice, 3, 4, however many times that meal lasts, and you can reuse your ingredients in a couple different ways. And this saves time for busy days, because it is key when you're having that day and you worked all day and you come home and there's already a meal sitting in that fridge, and all you gotta do is warm it up. It is amazing versus having to cook or you're going out. I'm a big fan of just prepping your meals ahead of time. So we also don't have to have expensive foods to eat well. You don't need all those superfoods that they're out all the time. It changes every month. There's a new amazing food on the market. You don't need it. Stick to the staples. It's okay to have beans, eggs, frozen veggies, oats, sweet potatoes, whatever your meats are. That's fine. You don't have to get fancy with it. If you have the ability to, I always recommend to buy in bulk. The shelf-stable products like your rice, your lentils, your canned foods. If you can go to Costco or one of those big stores, if you can go with a friend, buy in bulk, those things last a little bit longer. And then like your other things that go bad quicker, you can buy a little bit more frequently. Obviously, we're going to reuse ingredients across meals, but keep it simple. Simple is sustainable. When we get too complicated, we get frustrated, we get discouraged, and we stop. Just keep it as simple as possible. And then lastly, my favorite concept, grocery shopping. I know a lot of people hate grocery shopping. I love grocery shopping. I also grocery shop, and I'm out the store in 30 minutes or less. I do not spend a lot of time in the grocery store. The key is make a list. Make a list of exactly what you need before you go. If you are meal planning for the week, you know what you need. You've already taken inventory of what's in your fridge or your pantries. You know exactly what you're gonna buy. Buy those things and leave. Don't walk around and say, oh, I'm gonna go in this aisle, I'm gonna go in this aisle. Don't do that to yourself, because then you're gonna spend more money, then you're gonna be mad, and then you're not gonna get what you came here for. So just make a list and kind of stick to it. This one's a little bit of old school advice, but shopping the perimeter, and this tends to work in the larger chain grocery stores. All these a little bit smaller, so you can't really shop the perimeter there. But the things you'll need on a regular basis, your produce, your proteins, or your dairy, that's gonna be around the store. So I always say people start there first and pick up those items, and then only go within like the middle aisles if there's actually something you need from those middle aisles. Those are the ones that get you. Those are the ones that have the sweet treats, the goodies, a little thing like, oh, I haven't had that in so long, and you pick it up, and next thing you know, you picked up like 5 more things. Just shop the perimeter and do what you gotta do. I said before, buy frozen or cans, still the same nutritional quality. Only thing, if you buy cans, try to get things that are low in sodium, especially with beans or canned fishes. Look for it to be packed in water. Tuna is an example. It can be either packed in water or oil. You want to get the one in water because it's going to be less fat than the one in oil. Those are my only things. Other than that, feel free to buy. And rinse it out. Please rinse. Don't put the beans in that recipe. Rinse the beans first to get rid of the extra sodium. Because they add in sodium because it helps with the shelf life. So we want to get rid of that. We don't need that. And don't shop hungry. So yeah, don't go to the grocery store hungry, because if you go hungry, all of these rules, you can just throw them out the window. It's not gonna happen. And one I didn't add is don't shop with a child, because when I shop with my daughter, it never works properly. And another advice, which, I don't know how much this one works now in our current economy, but comparing unit prices, so looking at how much you're actually getting in that can versus other products, tend to help to see if you're actually saving money. Sometimes stores kind of trick you, but it's always an option to look at. And then lastly, this is another thing I get all the time. Healthy food does not mean bland food. Nobody should be eating chicken with just salt and pepper or your veggies unseasoned. You should never lose your flavors. You can absolutely use your seasonings. Please season your food. I tell people, I don't know why I'm still telling people that, but do it. Use herbs, use spices, use citrus, use garlic, use onion, thyme, use everything you can. The key is we want to be careful of the salt. We can still salt our food. We just don't want that to be the only thing we're doing. And when you're using these seasonings, make sure you're using the actual seasoning and not like the salt version. Like there's the garlic salt version of a lot of things. Just use the garlic and then use regular salt as needed, and trying different things. So cultural foods, I feel like get demonized a lot, and they're just as healthy as other foods. That's a whole different topic for a whole different day. But no, we can still have the foods we grew up in. It's just we want to make sure we're preparing them in ways that are still healthy for our bodies. So maybe less frying, try baking, try stewing, try air frying it. Those are all going to be Those are all going to be ways that we can still include those foods and keep our food seasoned. And this last one is more so in reference to our eating behaviors. So the way we actually enjoy food. You know, we live in a very go, go, go society, and we're often rushing through meals. So we're eating on the go, we're eating in front of the TV, we're eating in the car, we're eating while stressed. But we want to try to take at least one meal a day, take some time to slow down and just be present with that meal. It helps digestion. It can improve our satisfaction. It gives us time for our stomachs and our brains to actually connect to each other. You know, when we eat too fast, you know, our stomach, it's full, but our brain hasn't really connected, and we kind of keep on going. And next thing we know, we've overate, and we're like, oh man, why did I eat so much? We weren't paying attention. So at least one meal a day, try to take some time just to be in the moment with your food. Notice the flavors, notice the textures, notice your feeling of fullness as the food is filling you up. You know, practice gratitude, say a prayer before your meals. We all should be doing. You know, connect with yourself and just do that for yourself. I can guarantee you, you're gonna feel a lot better if we just practice slowing down when we can. I know it's not possible all the time, but like when you can, it's a form of self-care. Food should not be a stressful kind of experience. And then we talked about a couple different things today. But my last piece of advice is do not try to change everything at once. I've told you a couple different tips. Don't go out there tomorrow and say you're going to do every single thing tomorrow, because you're not. And you're going to get frustrated and you're going to get mad. Small changes are what really leads to habit building. Take it a habit at a time. Maybe you want to add more color. You say, I only eat orange foods. Add one extra color to your plate. Maybe choose a different vegetable to add this week. Just do that. Don't focus on doing too much else. Or maybe swapping one fried meal. I want to see how this meal tastes baked or cooked in a different way. Cook at home one night versus eating out. If you feel like you drink a lot of soda or juice, don't get rid of the soda or juice completely. Don't go cold turkey, but maybe have one less glass of soda, replace it with water, or practice gratitude. I always say, think about what you can add to your diet versus what you can take away from your diet. Then you actually can get the benefits a little bit more. And then just to wrap it up, so our summary, so we know nutrition can support our lungs and our bodies through every stage: prevention, recovery. Our fruits, our vegetables, those are colorful. Those are antioxidant-rich foods that can help our body fight inflammation. Whether we're preventing an illness or supporting recovery, you know, nourishing our bodies is the act of self-care. We want to stay active. I know I didn't touch on activity, but physical activity is very important. Eat balanced meals, so you know, include more antioxidant-rich foods, include more fiber-rich foods. You don't have to take away processed foods or fatty foods or sweet foods, but we want to make sure the majority is other things. And manage stress can protect your lungs as well as yourself. Our faith, our family, our food are all going to work together for healing and hope. And then to end on my thing, I tried to make end of a quote that I made up. When we feed our bodies of care, we give our lungs and our lives room to breathe. And on that end, thank y'all so much. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Let me just put my laptop back. Okay.
Let's have all the other panelists come on up, if you would, please. Dr. Hubert, while we're waiting for Dr. Flano and Ms. Mathis to come up, when you said we got to eat the rainbow, I'm guessing, yeah, Kittles. I mean, so Skittles, is that part of that? Eat the rainbow?
That's one of the foods we can have every now and then. It's not going to give us the lycopene or the no, not the layer of that. I would love if it did, though.
So what we're going to do, we're going to ask a question come to you, and you can all answer, but stand up when we have you answer, but you don't have to wait the second. All right. I had promised this, and slide up. So I had promised this young lady, she gets the first question. Stand up if you would, please, ma'am. Come on, stand up. Stand up. Okay, you had a question for us earlier. There you go.
Yeah, this is for Dr. Flano. When you were talking about the criteria, the question that came to my mind at that time was, I noticed that on the screen it was talking about smokers, but my mind thought, well, what if you're not a smoker, and what if you're in an atmosphere like I was? I was in an atmosphere for almost 4 months, and it was a lot of secondhand smoke. So that's what the question was. Okay, if it's secondhand smoke.
Right. So we don't.
Before you answer that, you also define for us what secondhand smoke is, and also add to that tertiary hand smoke. tertiary smoke?
So, firsthand is firsthand. It's you're directly smoking. Secondhand smoke is the rest of the smoke that's in the air that someone's breathing out and that you're being exposed to. Tertiary or third-hand smoke is all the smoke residue and stuff that like gets in the carpets and on the walls and in the clothing that kids get exposed to and stuff like that. So that's the third-hand smoke, which may not specifically lead to cancer. It has some links, but causes respiratory diseases with kids, the asthma, the sinus stuff, and whatever else. So the exposures. So we don't have the set criteria that says you've had this much secondhand smoke, you absolutely need to get screened. But what we do know is that there is a higher risk of developing lung cancer for people and other lung diseases that are exposed to a lot of secondhand smoke. That is a conversation that you have with your primary care doctor, and they can see if they want to get an x-ray, a breathing test, or pursue it even further under different guises. We can't say it's screening, but the test can be very similar.
Ms. Knox, could you tell me when you're talking to, and by the way, if someone has a question, please raise your hand and I'll come back there to you. But Ms. Knox,
Yep.
So in your experience of talking to people, how do you address this? Dr. Flano said, if we want our children to behave a certain way, we can't do the opposite of what we're trying to get them to do. So how do you address people when you see that they're smoking and you express to them your concerns for their child perhaps being exposed to secondhand or tertiary smoke?
Oh, wow. Just right under the bus, right off the bat, huh? Okay.
Do your kickboxing thing if you will.
Right. Sheesh. So I often find that, a lot of times a gentle reminder to people is what you need. Like you can hit people over the head with the hammer if you want, and it doesn't always work. I find that sometimes if you just remind people, like when I tell people my story and I say, diagnosed with lung cancer, and they look and go, but you don't smoke. I say, no, but I have lungs. That's all you need to get lung cancer. Just a gentle reminder that there's misinformation out there, or I just gently remind folks like, hey, if you're vaping, there's 6,000 chemicals in that and we don't know what they all are. And you're breathing that into your body. So I just find, gentle reminder, gentle education is sometimes all you need to kind of guide people. And then sometimes I hit them over the head with the hammer at the same time. Like, hey, I had never smoked and I'm diagnosed with lung cancer and you're just walking down the street, smoking cigarettes or whatever. So I'm like, you might want to consider going to get screened, and maybe some smoking cessation practices. But honestly, it depends on the person and, how I'm feeling that day.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
I'm a cancer survivor, no family history, no nothing. So when the doctor right here on the end, when you was talking about this, today I feel like I should get tested, screening for this because what I had, this came out of nowhere.
So answer it this way too, if you would, Dr. Flano.
Yeah.
Having a cancer at another site, does that necessarily increase your risk for cancer of the lung? And in the course of the evaluation, if you have one cancer, should you also be looked at for other cancers like a lung cancer?
Yeah, absolutely. We know that a lot of different cancers in different parts of the bodies, they may have the same trigger that causes someone to develop it. And your bodies are all interlinked. So it may affect in different places. So having one type of cancer does give you an increased risk of developing a different type of cancer. But when you have that, you don't necessarily, if you don't meet the hard criteria that they had for screening, you still have the ability to go back again with either the treating cancer doctor that you had, or even your primary care doctor and say, look, I've had breast cancer. I'm worried that maybe I'll have another type of cancer, lung cancer. How do we look on a more global basis of our bodies and get screenings? There are different scans that can get different ways to look, but a lot of this again comes back to not being afraid to having these, like we were talking about, having these conversations with either your primary care doctor or the specialist that was treating you from before and just say, I'm really focused on this. How do we stay ahead of this? But again, congratulations on your survivorship.
Ms. Mathis, So right now, we've seen a lot of celebrities, famous people going out there getting these various scans. You know, they have no symptoms, but they're getting a CT scan of their whole body, kind of, fishing expedition. So how do you approach it when we're talking to somebody who has a cancer at one site? And, everybody, this distinction, Dr. Flano talked to us about there's a non-small cell and there's a small cell lung cancer. So we're already talking two different types in one organ. But just because someone has a cancer doesn't mean all cancers aren't the same. So how do you get that message across? And especially when talking to them about the risk to their families and what needs to be done.
So as it's true, we have to stress the fact that all cancers are not the same, and no two people has the exact same cancer. It can be similar stages, both can have breast, but everybody's genetic makeup is different. Everybody's family histories are different. Everyone's comorbidities are different. When people are allergies, there's no two cancers are the same. So that's why we try to have precision medicine. But with your cancers and your treatments, yes, there's a lot of, we hear about things when celebrities get diagnosed or when celebrities do prophylactic extremes for, mastectomies and everything. But it comes back again to knowing yourself, knowing your body, knowing your side effects and your family histories and what extreme you're willing to go through for you. So you treat your cancers accordingly. Once you've finished your completement, you keep all your follow-up appointments, you go through all your survivorships and your surveillance, but you always want to know that you're at a higher risk. So every so often you need a scan. Every so often, you got to have a follow-up visit. Whether it's yearly, it should start at 3 to 4 months, then go to 6 months, then go to a year. But your journey does not end with your last treatment. The journey goes on for the rest of your life. You've got to be on top of your screenings. You've got to be on top of all of your preventive measures. You've got to be on top of your follow-up visits, and you have to request these surveillance scans. Just have to ask for them. And I'm going to answer the question also, not answer it, but I want to follow up or piggyback on what Dr. Fanal said. When you know that you've been exposed to an extreme amount of secondhand smoke, or you feel that you should be screened, but you don't meet the screening guidelines, that's where your physician comes into play. You got to have these conversations because the test is the same test. It's just either called a screening test or it's called a diagnostic test. It's the same 15 minutes CAT scan. But you got to ask for the chest X-ray, or you got to say, I'm concerned, or you got to say that, you've got to talk. And it's the exact same test, whether we call it a screening or whether we call it a diagnostic, it's the same test.
Ms. Knox, would you comment on that? Because the difference between that diagnostic in your case and screening when you're following up somebody.
Yeah, so I was never a candidate for screening. I like to say I was doomed to be late stage no matter what. Screening criteria is age 50 to 80. I am 32 with no previous healthcare issues, things like that, no history of cancer in the family. So doctors not looking at me as somebody who needs a lung cancer screening, even though I'm presenting with lung and respiratory issues. I would say in terms of the question itself, you do have to advocate. And had I known at the time that this was something that I needed to be aware of, I mean, honestly, I didn't know. So had I known at the time that this is something that could be a possibility, I would have definitely been like, take it one step further. Like, okay, that didn't work. You need to scan me. I had good insurance. It wasn't like I was underinsured or not insured. I had pretty great insurance. There was no reason for them to not have them do a scan. So I think, hindsight's 20/20. If I had known that this was something that was going to be a problem or could have been a problem for me, I probably would have taken that extra step. But, I fell into a lot of the same pitfalls that everyone on the stage has talked about where, I don't want to know, I don't want to find out or don't think anything is wrong and don't, follow up. So that's a lot of pitfall that we all have. So I'm warning everyone in here to just make sure you don't fall into that same trap and advocate for your health, even if you don't, like they said, have any of the symptoms.
Thank you very much. Question here. Come
Yes, my question is for Dr. Hubert.
on. Oh, Hubert, yeah.
Yes.
Which Dr. Hubert? She has two of them now.
Oh, right. I heard you mention the air fryer. I hear a lot of different things about it. I personally love the air fryer. But what's the difference between like the air fryer and the oven? I know frying is out the question, but like what's the I don't know the word I'm looking for, but yeah, thank you, Dr. Mark. What's the benefits with using the air fryer opposed to the oven?
That's more of a cooking method questions, a little bit out of my like my wheel scope. But I think some of the benefits is that you can mimic the effects of frying, but you don't get the negative health benefits. So you don't have to use oil, but you can still get like that crunchy kind of texture compared to in the oven. Some people are able to replicate that, but it takes a different level of skill set. So we're not all able to do it. Yeah.
Well, what happens is with an air fryer, it's a matter of superheating. So you're right, you're getting the frying and all the benefits of the frying without having to add any oil or any of those things. So you're still, it is literally still frying, but it's just that you're right, it's just you're using air because the air is heating everything up. So it's almost like you think about a microwave oven works because it doesn't heat the food, but actually it causes agitation of the water molecules, which generates the cooking process. It is the water that's actually generating the heat that's inside the food. And all foods have water in it, unless you cook like me and you make it a rock, in which case you got no water in that thing. Ms. Lee, tell me, we've heard it alluded to a couple of times. You're sitting there, the physician says that you have a diagnosis of cancer. What is the process that's going on in folks' mind? And in particular, let's say you're a young lady like Ms. Knox, who has a great joie de vivre. She's driven. But you tell a 32-year-old, oh, by the way, you've got an advanced lung cancer. And at the time she had an advanced lung cancer, survival rates were not good. So how, patients react differently. Tell me about that suicide risk or lack, saying giving up, the despair, the depression that comes along with that.
So first of all, I would tell folks, usually there's somebody in an office setting, either outpatient or inpatient, that is a social worker or a case manager. I always advocate for people to get with them because they can help you not only navigate resources throughout their journey, financially, job related, but also it's a safe place for you to talk about your mental health and your healthcare needs. You would be hard pressed to find someone that does not struggle with depression or anxiety due to being diagnosed with cancer. You will also be hard pressed for someone not to struggle. It's literally up eating your life, right? So financial stress, depending on the treatment, you may need to have somebody stay at home with you and become a caregiver. It changes the relationship dynamics between a husband and wife, right? Or even your children, you're operating in a different role, right? And so that just creates chaos in your life. And in chaos, you can't think straight. You might not make the best decisions, and then everything kind of feels like it's closing in on you. And so what I really like to tell people is make sure you speak to a social worker or mental health professional. If you're not sure if you have access to one, ask to speak to a case manager. They can help you with navigating those resources throughout your health journey. Also, if you need medication, don't be afraid, right? So that's another big thing. If I take medication, is it going to cause memory issues or is it going to cause other things? Sometimes you may need something to help you stabilize out so you can get through that journey and be able to process it. But definitely making sure you speak with somebody so you can get some resources, you can get some help, you can operate ways of how you can navigate. The other thing that I like to tell people is when you're going through a journey like this and you do have a family or active friends that are involved in your life, when things get too heavy, instead of avoiding them, make sure you kind of set a time during the week, at least once a week, where you say, we're going to sit down as a household and discuss all the issues, what's going on, right? So that helps a person who is more so an avoider and doesn't want to discuss issues be able to talk about it. But it also helps the person who is more anxious and on things and wanting to talk about it and want to communicate and let's get an answer and figure things out. You guys can kind of come together at a middle ground and say, at this time from 7 to 8:30, we're going to talk about all the household issues, whether it's financial, our relationship, the kids, whatever is going on with our household. It allows that time for you to have that space to communicate about it. but then also putting it to bed and saying we're going to move on with the rest of our week, right? So that's kind of like a middle ground, but definitely making sure you talk to somebody. If you don't have health insurance, accessing free resources in the community, if you can, or even looking into your insurance plan to see what's available. Also EAP, if you're working, that's something that you can access through your employer. And you do have a level of confidentiality with them.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm a 13-year lung cancer survivor, and also I got diagnosed last year with breast cancer. Now, breast cancer runs in the family. Then my mother died of ovarian cancer, and I still always have that fear of, getting another cancer. And then my husband died of lung cancer as well, and I always wondered, what's the likelihood of two people in the same house dying or getting, lung cancer? And we found out later that, there was asbestos in the house. And also, I guess I forgot my question. I always feared that I would die of ovarian because my mother got ovarian. But you talked about, the different types of cancer or the likelihood of getting cancer again.
Ursula, I want you to take first and then go Dr. Fano. So I think another part of her question is, okay, so there is a family history of breast cancer and ovarian cancer. Now, we know that there's some cancers that run together in families. What would these cancers be? And as we talked about a little bit earlier in our discussion, and they're unrelated to lung cancer, or could they possibly be related? But what are these cancers that run together in families, and how does one look out for that?
Thank you.
As Dr. Fanal said, once you've been diagnosed with any type of cancer, it puts you at a higher risk for cancers. A lot of the female cancers, genetics is very important, and it's important to get genetic testing, but less than 10% of breast cancer is hereditary. Most cancer come from our environments, our social habits, our lifestyles. Less than 10% of breast cancer is hereditary. Now, some people can carry the BRCA genes when you get genetics testing. BRCA1, BRCA2, some people carry different genes from. That's why it's important to get genetic testing so that you know those that you are at higher risk for. Most family histories have to be within your immediate families, like your mother, your siblings, your children. Most times, if you have breast cancer and your dad's aunt had breast cancer or your great aunt, that's no really correlation. It's from your immediate bloodline, and it's really less than 10%. Now, there are a lot of times, depends on the type of breast cancer you have and the age that you are. If you're still childbearing age, we look at the fallopian tubes, we look at ovaries, and make recommendation for prophylactic surgeries or removal of those organs. Because we do testing, oncotype testing, to see what's your reoccurrence rate, what's the likelihood of your cancer reoccurring, and what other cancers are you susceptible to.
As we pass on Dr. Fano, let me remind you that there are certain cancers that do run together in families. There are breast, prostate, ovary, uterine, and colon and rectal cancer. So again, 5 cancers: breast, prostate, colorectal, uterine, ovarian cancer, to which you can also add bladder, pancreatic, and renal cancer. So if one member, as Ms. Mathis said, if one first-degree relative has one of those, your risk goes up. If 2 or more, the risk can go up to almost 3 times. But most cancers are sporadic, but there are some of these things that are. So in a person such as yourself, with your family history that you've talked about, so if you have daughters or the women in your family should all be getting mammograms on a regular basis. They should be getting endometrial smears and also sonograms for their ovaries. And of course, colonoscopy, looking for colon cancer. The men add forget the endometrial, forget the ovarian, and forget the breast mammograms, but also add to them prostate on examination. 2 people with lung cancer in the same family. It's husband, wife. It's not genetics, it's environment.
It might be environment. strong risk of environment. You mentioned asbestos being exposed. And a lot of times if you stay up late at night and you'll hear the commercials about, oh, were you exposed to asbestos, call this lawyer and whatever else. We know asbestos is, it's a little fiber that was in insulation. It doesn't break down if it gets into the body, right? And the big cancer that they talk about as mesothelioma, if you have mesothelioma, which is a cancer that lines the edge of the lung and kind of entraps it, if you have mesothelioma, you are exposed to asbestos. But if you're exposed to asbestos, the most common cancer you're going to get is lung cancer, right? And so that may be the link. I'm glad that you looked outside for other reasons, because when you have two people in the same family, in the same household, you do have to look at for other causes. And living here in Pennsylvania, I would get your house tested for radon as well, right? Yeah, and 40, almost 40% of the houses tested here in Pennsylvania are above the EPA safety level of 4, right? And it's a simple test. It's like $10 or $14. You can Home Depot, Amazon. You set it up in a closed area inside the house. You catch it in a couple of days. You send it in. You do it once every 2 years in the wintertime, especially if you have a basement. Okay, so another consideration, look for other things that you might be exposed to in the household. Radon is a radioactive byproduct of uranium. So people that have worked in uranium mines or nuclear plants might be. It also comes out of the soil, like in Georgia, there's big granite rock, Stone Mountain. A lot of radon is exposed. It's just a breakdown product. It comes from the soil, from granite. No smell, no color, no taste. It's radioactive, and it builds up inside of households, especially for people that have basements.
What about coal mines? Isn't that another source?
Coal mines, yes, absolutely. Coal mines where factories were. We were in Birmingham, Alabama. The church said that, in the past year or so, they had like 4 people die from lung cancer. Well, it turns out that the church was in an area that used to be a big mine. So they were built on top of that. And there's another time that you need to recommend people testing their houses.
We have one more question. Please, sir.
Hey, good evening. My name is Donald. I'm a caretaker for a cancer survivor and a cancer fighter. My question is posed from the questionnaire that you actually have, and it's what information what information are you hoping to obtain through this? I'm sorry, wrong one. Say, what, if any, resources would you like to learn about more? And it's more, I guess it's taboo in the medical field, but I'm asking more so, like, how do you? And I think the doctor right there, she did a great job in explaining how to deal with managing lung cancer and the types of foods to eat. But I'm looking at it from a more holistic and a more homeopathic, perspective. How can one, for those that are skeptics, that are concerned about, like, okay, well, I don't want to, go one direction, I want to take another direction. Can you answer, for those people that have those concerns of, okay, I don't want to get surgery, I don't want to get, do the immunotherapies or the chemotherapies or all the radiation and the things that come with it, but from a more homeopathic or, holistic perspective, how can one feel more secure, or is that an approach, in which you can direct?
So I guess the question also is, do we consider food as a medicinal product, and is it part and parcel of our treatment, as you seem to infer, or is it something separate? And how do we, look at this whole health thing from a total perspective, as opposed to carving up into individual little silos? Go ahead and start, Dr. Flano, then let's hear what Dr. Hubert has to say.
Yeah, I would say that the treatment and I think this is one of the messages we're trying to get across with this whole presentation, that the understanding, the recognition, and the treatment of lung cancer or any cancer is not just one silver bullet is going to fix everything. Okay? So yes, there's some treatments that work and they work very well, and that may be productive. There's some that kind of work and some that may not work very well at all. But then you have to factor in other things. You heard comorbidities during this talk. You heard nutrition during this talk. You've heard lifestyle, mental health during this talk, support systems during this talk. So all of these play a role in how well you respond to some of the treatments. Homeopathic medicine, I don't downplay it. There's not a lot of data on it. A lot of the other trials, the medications, the chemotherapies, the new biomarkers, testing that gives you targeted therapy with less toxic effects. All of those have a lot more studies where the data we can actually lean on and say, we can actually pull up. I don't know about that. I don't want to downplay, but it's always a choice. And we come right back to what we were saying earlier about having these discussions with your providers about which decision you think is going to work best for you. But also knowing when you're asking these questions, what's the likely benefits, what are the risks, and the likelihoods of success?
So Dr. Hubert, is it, when we talk about food supplements, is it instead of or in addition to?
It's definitely an addition to. So any type of care is going to be a multidisciplinary approach, and you're going to want a medical side, you're going to want a behavioral side, you're going to a lifestyle side, which is like a nutrition or a dietitian. We can never. I can, as a practitioner, can never come out and say that food is going to heal you because there's no scientific evidence to back that up. It can support you, it can help you feel better, but we can't ever replace it. And being a dietitian, also being a scientist, I work for a pharmaceutical company. I run those clinical studies. I do tend to get bombarded with both sides. I have my clinician lens, and someone comes on, and they're like, well, I read in this article, if I eat this is going to heal me, this can happen. And me as a scientist, I can read the evidence and I'm like, no, it's not out there. So one of my big things is scientific communication. And I think if we can do a better job at that, at translating at what's really happening in those studies to the lay public, we can help to alleviate some of that skepticism that's going on and why some people are a little scared and nervous to have. It's a complex thing. That was also one of my grand research ideas during my postdoc was how do I more effectively communicate science to people so they're not afraid to do these things. But that's how I would approach it. So if somebody came to me as a dietitian and they were leaning this way, I would break down the science. I would get the papers, I'd break it down, I would walk them through that, I would take that time. If we could have a perfect world and the doctor's office could have someone in that office that can do that with the patient, I think that would be amazing and beneficial. Maybe one day, I don't know, but yeah, that's my.
But Ms. Mathis said it best. If you can't get somebody to sit there and answer your question, get somebody else. To wrap this portion of the program up, I want one take-home point, brief, 30 seconds. What is the take-home point? We're going to start with Dr. Flano and go right down the line and end with Ms. Lee.
I think the take-home point, I would say, it's going to be a little bit of a twist. I would take 5 things you've heard from 5 different people tonight. One thing from each person that resonated with you that you can relate to and that you can spread the word to somebody else about or make an active change in your life about and go home and do it. Because that's just how it's going to spread across. We can come talk to you, you can go talk to others. And those 5 things, you can enact them and spread the word.
Dr. Hubert.
I feel like I said mine. My take home will go back to nutrition. Think about one thing that you can do differently to help to add to your diet, to help you to feel more energized, not as tired. So what can I add tomorrow?
Ms. Mathis.
Mine is self-advocacy. Get your primary care physician. The biggest risk factor for all diseases, cancer, every ailment is aging, but aging is better than the alternative. So we have to take care of ourselves and our bodies while we're here.
Ms. Knox.
All right, mine would be to listen to your body. And if you know that something's wrong, make sure you go get checked out. Don't be afraid to go to your doctor and tell them what's happening, because it's that fear that keeps us from moving forward, and it's that fear that keeps us from being represented in these numbers. And if you know somebody who is afraid and is not doing these things, hold their hand, take them to the doctor, sit with them, and help them make that journey so that we can start to change as a community and be better as a community.
Ms. Lee. Hold on. Ms. Lee, go ahead. Hold your question after the program, then you can ask one of the panelists then. Yes, ma'am. We'll still be around. We're not going anywhere.
I would say making sure that the actions and the decisions that you're making are going to lead you to where you want to be in life. Think about your life, where you want to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now. How do you envision your life, and making sure that the decisions you're making, the actions that you're taking are lining up with those things. And if you're having issues or you're struggling or you don't know where to start, making sure that you're reaching out and you're asking for help and you're developing a plan and putting things in place. You're not perfect. You're not going to know everything, but having the discussion, being open-minded, putting a plan in place, allowing people to come in your life to help you navigate that can help you lead to a better outcome in your life in all different areas of life. And how you do one thing is usually how you do all things. So just be mindful of that.
Please give a hand to our panel. Let me remind everyone that if you have not, to fill out the pre-survey, if you've already done that, great. Please remember to fill out the post-survey. Very important for us. HEALcollaborative.org. You can get information as far as the program that's going to be in April. The Lung Cancer Symposium is going to take place in April, the end of April, about the 23rd, 25th, 26th, I think, down in New Orleans. So you can register for that then. Let me bring up Mr. Howard Mosby for a special presentation.
All right, good evening. This is going to take just a couple of minutes. Well, first of all, Dr. Fano, let's give him a hand. This young man has gone all over the country doing this presentation, and the reaction that you all had in here is the same one we get in every city that we've gone to. 25 cigarettes in a cigar? When people, their eyes get big. Anyway, and the rest of our panel, Dr. Hubert, there you go, Dr. Hubert, Ursula Mathis, Jaymie Knox, and Ashley Lee. Ashley Lee's been all over the country with us as well. I'm Howard Mosby. I'm one of the principals here at HEAL Collaborative. We had a program, a lung cancer program in Houston. Dr. Tuckson just talked about the program we were going to do in New Orleans. But one of the things that we didn't do in Houston that I want you all to help me do today. And we honored some of the individuals that actually have been integral to us doing this work around the country. And the person that we want to honor today, we wanted to honor Houston, but they didn't show up with us, is Miss Ursula Mathis. We want to thank you for all of the work that you've done with HEAL Collaborative. You heard her today. She's real. She comes at you, and she lets you know the truth. We appreciate everything that you do for this organization, for our community. And I just want to say thank you so much for what you do. With that, it is indeed my honor, my pleasure to bring up Bishop Felton. We are in his house. We acknowledge the fact that we're in his house. We appreciate the fact that he wrapped his arms around us and allowed us to do this program here. Ladies and gentlemen, your pastor, Bishop Felton.
Thank you, Brother Howard Mosley and the great doctor. We appreciate you coming back to Mount Airy. I'm glad that we have bonded. We were in Houston last year, or was it this year? Time goes so quickly. Now, this group over here has been up since about 7 this morning. We had a funeral, 5 o'clock. We had a funeral in Easton, and oh my, went all over to New Jersey for the repast, and then Highway 22 got gridlocked, and 309 had an accident, so it's been something else, but we're going to do better tomorrow. What time we starting in the morning, Doctor? 10, all right, that's good. And we're planting trees at 8:30, so then we got you at 10, and then we got the Hatitude luncheon at 12. So every day is a marathon. And so it's just good to be around people that help you to be healthy. Where else you going to go and find a catered meal on a Friday night? Amen. We certainly appreciate our panelists. Congratulations. And so I'm not long-winded. You can ask them. I am not long-winded. Huh? They got second thoughts about that. All right. You want me to close it out? All right, let's do it. Eternal God, we thank you that the church continues to be an oasis of healing in a desert of sickness, disease, violence, hatred. Thank you for giving us your grace, your mercy, your love. Thank you for the healing qualities of love. By this shall everyone know that you are my disciples, by the love you have one to another. And may you so fill us with love that every person that we come in contact with, we will leave the love, the agape love of Jesus upon their lives. We thank you for the HEAL Collaborative. We thank you for people that are so interested in us being healthy, that they come all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, and other places in the country. We praise you, God, for your great gifts to our community. Be with us as we go from this place, and we pray your blessings upon tomorrow's sessions as well. In Jesus' name, amen.